Hi everyone, this is What If Fan, bringing you another part of What If Transmigrated to Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Please find the fanfic name and author name in the description. If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe and check out the other content on the channel. Also, this series What If Transmigrated to Yu-Gi-Oh! GX is
almost
finished for now due to catching up with the current number of chapters. So I would like everyone's input for the next project on this channel. I am currently debating between 3 fanfics. 1. What if Transmigrated as Harry Potter? 2. What if Ninja in Jujutsu Kaisen? 3. What if Sign-In System in High School DxD? Please comment below on what fanfic you would like to see next on this channel. I will also be creating a poll for the same. Let's start. Chapter 21. The automatic doors of the classroom and Cyrus burst into the room in a panic, dashing down the stairs to the row of bottom desks. "Jaden, it's awful," the blue-haired boy cried out. "Chaz is gone." "And that's awful how?" Jaden asked, giving the boy a bemused look as the boy doubled over in front of him, panting deeply and trying to catch his breath. All eyes in the class went to the 2 boys. "Ugh." Yarden groaned from where he sat up in the back rows, at the very end beside Alexis. He'd forgotten about this. And he was so not in the mood to deal with it. No wonder Banner isn't here. It was first thing on a Monday morning, and he was totally hungover. Zane, as it turned out, really did know the ins and outs of everything when it came to this island, and easily got him in contact with the guys supplying the alcohol on the island. He'd spent 5,000 DP over the course of Saturday and Sunday and celebrated the rest of the weekend away with his dual spirits. It said a lot about how much he drank that he was hungover even with his enhanced recovery rate thanks to his spirits. Heck, according to Dark Magician Girl, the power of his soul had begun to grow quite substantially thanks to the power of Jinzo split between him Ranryu and 100 Dragon. And as such, his physical abilities had begun to take a large spike upwards alongside his recovery rate and such. "Well, I mean," Cyrus trailed off, "isn't he like your big dual rival?" Jaden gasped, "You're right." He smacked his palms together, eyes widening. "I need my competition. You know, I saw Ches packing his stuff late last night." Taiyu mused from the row of desks below Yarden's. "Heh, you know why?" Reza scoffed from beside him, crossing his arms behind his head, "'Cause he lost to that slifer down there and that R.A., Misawa." "Heh, well, good riddance to that loser," another random obelisk whose name you didn't bother remembering laughed. "If you can't even beat the ketchup and mustard squads, then you ain't worth anything. Should you guys really be talking?" Jasmine snorted. Mindy giggled. "Yeah, didn't Yarden beat all of you easy when he was still a slifer?" the black-haired girl added. "Not to mention, Ches, idiot that he is still a far better duelist than you 3. Alexis mused, chin propped on one of her palms. The random obelisk gave a growl, standing up and glaring at the 3 girls. "You better watch what you say, don't think you can talk big just because you've got looks," he pointed them. "Do you know who I am? My family can have Y dash." "Shut it." Yarden raised his head from where it was resting between his crossed arms and giving the teen below him an annoyed glare. The boy locked up at Yarden's voice. He looked at Yarden, before flinching and slowly turning around and sitting down, not saying a word. There was a reason even the rich morons didn't mess with Zane. And they wouldn't mess with him for the same reason. As far as the hierarchy of Obelisk Blue went, Yarden was at the very top, a favorite of Growlers, second only to Zane. And his overwhelming strength as a duelist could not be contested, not when he defeated 38 duelists at once in a single turn, most of them upper years. "Well, I guess if those guys were the only friends I had, I'd probably run away too, I tell ya." Jaden shook his head as he watched the boy back down from Yarden. "Jaden, I know Ches has been a pain in the butt in the past," Cyrus bit his lip, "but what if he's in some kind of trouble and needs us to help him?" the blue-haired boy fretted. Jaden smiled at him. "Good point, Cy, the right to do would be to go look for him," the brown-haired boy replied. "Let's go search for him now," he said, grabbing Cyrus by the shoulder and directing him back to the stairwell. The 2 of them quickly ran up them and disappeared through the automatic sliding classroom door, ditching class to go search for Chaz. Alexis frowned watching them go, before slowly rising to her feet as well. "Alexis?" Jasmine gave her a surprised glance. "They're not wrong, you know," Alexis replied, and Chaz is an obelisk blue just like us, we should look out for him. And go make sure the idiot hasn't gotten lost and eaten by some kind of snake in the forest or something. Yeah, that'd be bad. Mindy cringed. I suppose. Jasmine sighed. The red and black-haired girls stood up to follow Alexis' lead and they made their way to the end of the desk row they were sat at. Alexis didn't follow quite yet though. She turned to the boy sitting next to her. You coming? She asked. Pass, Yarden waved her off. If he's leaving, he's just gonna be heading down to the docks and I can barely walk in a straight line right now, my head's killing me. Besides, he hadn't exchanged more than 20 words with the guy. Going and searching for him when he felt like shit, no thanks. Alexis bit her lip, before sighing. Alright, she nodded. She gave him a searching, hesitant look for a moment, looking for the words to bring up what she'd been thinking on all weekend, before sighing again. I'll see you later then, Yarden. She waved him goodbye and then followed her friends out of the row and up the stairs out of the classroom, following behind Jaden and Cyrus. Yarden watched them go before groaning and slotting his head back between his crossed arms, shutting his eyes. They'll be fine without me anyway, he thought. They'd most likely run into Wheeler the monkey, and then everything would work out when Jaden beat the animal in a duel and then Banner would scare off the shady scientists in suits when he turned up. The shady scientists in suits, that had guns of some kind if he remembered right. Oh god damn it. Yarden groaned, suddenly worried. All it would took was one bit of panic and one of those 5 could end up with a bullet in them. He pushed himself up from his seat, running a hand through his hair in annoyance. Now he just had to go keep an eye on them. He quickly left the row behind and walked up the stairs and out of the classroom. You know, for all that Alexis was actually very intelligent. Her common sense was not up to the same par. Or, well, she allowed herself to be dragged around by the idiocy of those around her too much. For example, Yarden had already told her that Chaz would obviously be heading to the docks in order to leave the island. Even if he didn't know that from prior knowledge, he'd come to that conclusion through common sense. Yet, after Alexis, Jasmine and Mindy caught up with Jaden and Cyrus. Where did they go searching for Chaz? Well, they seemed to think it was a swimming idea to wander off deep into the jungle, where no rich pansy boy like Chaz was currently would ever go. Kaaz. Jaden's voice echoed throughout the jungle, where are ya? Come on out, ya scrub. Yes, because he'd totally come out after being called a scrub. Well actually, in Chaz's case that would totally work, he wouldn't be able to resist retorting to something like that. So good on Jaden's part there. But what wasn't good on Jaden's part was shouting so loudly in a jungle that contained wild animals. Yarden was sure he'd heard wolves howling at one point. Wait, he did go out into the jungle alone to the reject well. But, what the heck was hypocrisy? Did it taste good? In Yarden's case, he was obviously just a badass. But he knew all about Jaden's skills when it came to a fight. Mainly, he was utterly lacking. And considering he was probably the muscle of the current group searching for Chaz, well, that was just sad. Or maybe Alexis is the muscle of this group? Yarden mused, stroking his chin as he observed the group from the top of a tree. How did he get there? He jumped. Monster spirit enhancements for the win. He could just join them. But, he didn't want to. He didn't care about Chaz at all since he knew where he went. He was only here to make sure these idiots didn't get themselves shot over a monkey. Admittedly a badass monkey, but a monkey nonetheless. So he'd play the role of the big damn hero if needed, but other than that he felt no need to get involved and was just going to chill out on some tree branches. They could be surprisingly comfy if you found a good one. Besides, his head was still pounding. It was clearing up pretty quickly, but all the jumping around and shouting while looking for the Chaz wasn't exactly a good help for that. Kaaz. Cyrus' voice echoed and Yarden winced. He had such a high-pitched voice it basically pierced into his brain when he shouted. When are his balls going to fucking drop? He groaned inwardly. He felt a bit guilty about it, but honestly, Cyrus really did need to man up in every way, from voice, to confidence to attitude. Even if he was already in a better position compared to his original counterpart already thanks to Yarden confronting Zane over it, he still needed a lot of work. And that annoying voice had to go for sure. If only for the sanctity of Yarden recovering from his hangovers. They continued on through the jungle for a bit more before a grunt of annoyance echoed and he looked down to see Alexis scowling in annoyance. That's it, I'm getting annoyed with this. I really should have just listened to Yarden. The busty blonde shook her head before cupping her hands around her mouth. Ches, you little toad, if this is some kind of pathetic cry for attention, you better hope we don't find you, you hear me? She shouted, pure annoyance in her voice. Despite the throb his head gave at her loud tone, Yarden couldn't help but chuckle. He almost wished Ches really was just prowling through the forest. The hit to his ego of his crush saying that to him would be funny as fuck. Yarden never claimed to be a saint. With how loud her voice was, it spooked hundreds of birds in the surrounding trees, and with a chorus of shrieks they all took to the air. This was not good for his headache, obviously. So far, this was turning out to be a bad plan on his part. The things true heroes like himself had to endure sure were torturous. His sheer good-heartedness and forgiving nature even surprised him sometimes. It's really tempting to summon my dragons and burn them all to death, he grit his teeth and growled lowly. Fucking pains in the ass feather buckets. He was pretty sure they were all seagulls too. Surely nobody would miss them? Their shrieks in the mornings were absolutely killer. I see, they annoy you so, master? Serpent Knight Dragon's voice echoed within his head lowly and quietly. Such a courteous dragon, no wonder he was the ace of his deck. If you wish, I will happily erase these disease-filled winged rats and grant you solace. Tempting, oh so tempting. Thanks for the offer, but nah, it's cool, mate. Yarden waved off his dragon's offer. Annoying as they are, I'm sadly not cruel enough to just kill off hundreds of them for that. Sometimes it truly sucked to have a conscience and be an animal lover. Very well, master, but the offer is always open. You but need ask and I shall do as you desire. Serpent Knight Dragon hummed before falling silent. See, that was why Rex Raptor was trash, and he refused to take back his words or apologize without him getting down on his knees and groveling for forgiveness. He heard the dragon chuckle in the back of his head, but he didn't speak up again. He and Serpent Knight Dragon were a lot on the same wavelength after all. When they didn't want to get something done or accomplish something, they preferred to just chill out and relax. Yeah, threaten him, that'll bring him running. Jaden snorted, breaking him from his thoughts. Alexis just crossed her arms and snorted. Maybe it would if he was at all manly, she huffed, rolling her eyes. Jasmine chuckled. You're spending too much time around Yarden, she pointed out before shrugging, but you know I'm sure there's a good reason Chaz ran off. Yeah, like he was a little girl and couldn't handle the fact he lost a few duels even after cheating and getting outside help, Alexis pointed out snidely. Instead of facing the consequences of his bad choices and people suddenly making fun of him for it, he ran away. Despite the fact that Alexis was the one that said she wouldn't leave a fellow obelisk behind not long ago, she sure didn't mind insulting him at the same time. Huh, maybe I am a bad influence on her? Yarden grinned lightly. You know what? Even with the ringing headache he had, it was totally worth it just for this alone. It might be a good thing though. Because Alexis constantly got shat on originally. Poor, super hot girl. Don't worry, Yarden's here to make it all better. Or, now just hear me out here, Mindy cut in, smiling brightly at the others in the group. Chaz could just be out trying to pick me some really nice flowers. My Chazzy can be so romantic like that. What? Yarden was not the only one who gave the girl an odd look. The other four around her looked at her as if she grew a second head. You like Chaz now? Jasmine wrinkled her nose in disgust. Last week it was Bastion. Who's next, little Cyrus? Mindy shrugged and chuckled. Why not? He's kinda cute, and if he turns out anything like Zayn in the next few years, total eye candy, she replied without shame, before suddenly narrowing her eyes and pointing her finger at Jasmine, then Alexis accusingly. Besides, I need a little love too, you know. It's not fair when you two constantly have Yarden's affection wrapping you up nice and tight. That's a weird way to word it. Yarden couldn't help but think. Jasmine's cheeks tinted red while Alexis looked away, the blonde scratching her cheek. Hey now, it's not like he doesn't flirt with you either, Jasmine sputtered. In fact, he probably flirts with you the most. Sure, but he's not serious about it with me like he is you two, Mindy pointed out with a pout. He's focused so much on you, he's all you can talk about, and you've turned down a bunch of rich guys you'd have loved to date before, and Lexi has actually went on multiple dates with him. Lexi, you know, the girl who's literally made guys like Harrington Rosewood run off crying when she's reject them. the girl who's had zero interest in romance at all since we met her. Heh, get wrecked, Rosewood. Still, now he felt kind of guilty. It wasn't like he didn't like Mindy either. She was just as hot as Jasmine. And she was really easy to get along with and hang out with and didn't get upset easily at all over minor things. She was a top-grade girl. I'm the total third wheel here, or fourth wheel even. Mindy crossed her arms and glared poutingly at Jasmine. Alexis seemed to think a tree was much more interesting than the current discussion. Hey, sure, but look, he's totally flirting with all of us, and even if he's not as serious with you, it still means he's trying to get with both me and Lexi. Jasmine hurriedly waved her arms at her accusations. You really want the attention of a guy trying to basically get with multiple girls at once? Mindy just raised an eyebrow at her. It doesn't seem to bother you, she replied challengingly. Jasmine choked, but offered no rebuttals. Yarden's own eyebrows rose in interest. Ho, he hummed to himself. I wish I was Yarden. Cyrus sighed, shoulders slumping as he listened to the discussion of the girls. Why? Jaden looked at him in confusion. I've no idea what the heck they're talking about. Whatever it is though is making me glad I'm not him right now. Ah, never change, Jaden. Yarden perked up as he heard noise coming from not far away, grunting and heavy breathing and the sound of the rapid pitter-patter of feet on the ground. Thank fuck, this means things won't last much longer, he mused. And then he could get back to class and asleep. Or well, since he had already skipped class, maybe he could just return to his room and claim to be sick? He was practically Growler's new golden boy, and the man would go out of his way to make sure he wasn't in trouble. Actually, thinking on that thought reminded him of what would happen once Growler took over next year. And the fact that he would be trying to promote students to fame-achieving heights to promote the school's reputation and his own. Ignoring the crap with the light of destruction, that might be worth taking advantage of. Wait, if I kick Aster's ass first in a duel, will that mean Jaden won't get the Neospatians? Yarden blinked as the thought came to him. That could be a problem. Because from what he'd learned since arriving here, while kind of shit to use normally, that didn't factor in here, not really, and they really increased the weight class that Jaden could punch at as far as spirit shenanigans went. Also, Neos was totally needed for all the crazy powerful monsters would fuse with it to make later. Rainbow Neos, Neos Wiseman, Divine Neos. Jaden would need that kind of power later down the line to deal with Darkness or Nightshroud, or whatever he called himself. Could I take care of him through Atticus? Yarden wondered. He doubted it. Jaden sealed off his soul in a shadow game and he still just came back. Darkness was basically a concept really. He honestly wasn't sure who was stronger, Zork Necroshade or Darkness. And he was sure Darkness couldn't measure up to the light of destruction. Hey look, over there, in the bushes. Alexis suddenly spoke up, breaking the discussion between Jasmine and Mindy below and Yarden from his thoughts. Something's moving. Yarden gleefully put that crap out of mind for now. There was no point thinking on it right now after all, not when he lacked the firepower to walk up and punch them in the nose after all. Chazzy? Mindy perked up and looked at the bushes. Yeah, it's gotta be, Jaden grinned, happily changing the subject. Game's over, scrub boy, time to come on back and face the music. Let's just get this over with and head back. Jasmine rolled her eyes and took lead, walking forward to the bushes. I'm so done with this nonsense. Alexis grunted and followed behind her, while Cyrus just shrugged and fell in line with the rest. Wait, now that I'm seeing this happen, are you people stupid? Yarden's jaw fell. Why the hell in all that was holy in the land of dragons and busty magical girls, did they seriously believe that Ches Princeton, Ches the rich brat born with a golden spoon in his mouth, would be rustling about in the bushes deep in the jungle? You'd think at least Alexis would be more thoughtful in regards to danger after the Titan incident. Am I, me of all people, seriously gonna have to lecture people on common sense? Yarden literally gaped. This really was an absurd world. Honestly, he could nip this in the bud right now and put an end to it. But you know what? They totally needed this. At least to hammer in some more common sense into their empty heads. Maybe one of them getting kidnapped by a monkey would actually let them develop a danger sense? Or not, and he could just win some brownie points playing the big damn hero. Either way, he came out ahead. All I do is win. Yarden nodded. As they got closer to the bushes, a brown and gray blur shot out towards them and they froze up. Screams of shock erupted from the mouths of Jasmine, Mindy and Cyrus as the blur bowled them all over. Except Jasmine. She found herself hoisted up into the air by their mysterious assailant, who was a monkey decked out in technologically advanced gear, a helmet covering its head and some form of chest plate over its torso. Yarden had to resist the urge to jump down and put an end to this nonsense here and now. Instead, he just continued observing as Wheeler turned and bounded back through the bushes and jumped into the trees and began swinging away one-handed, carrying Jasmine in the other. You know, now that I think about it, Wheeler is fucking strong. Yarden realized. Monkeys were not that strong to his knowledge. Nowhere near actually. What the hell did they do to that monkey when experimenting on him? Well, it was a close resemblance, but that wasn't Chaz. Alexis stared after the fleeing monkey in a daze. As she spoke, the sound of heavy panting echoed and a trio of men came running into the clearing they were in. Two large, heavily muscled men in dark suits and sunglasses, one carrying some form of rifle while the third was an incredibly short squad man not much taller than Cyrus with heavy dark hair and a beard of the same make. TCH, he's gone, one of the dark suit-wearing men clicked his tongue, the bigger of the two in fact. He was so large he could give Titan a run for his monkey. What now? After him obviously, the shortest man barked and they chased Wheeler into the bushes and through the forest. It took the group of teens a moment to realize what was actually going on and they shot to her feet. Did that monkey just kidnap Jasmine? Cyrus shouted in shock, and what the heck? Who were those guys? No idea, shady though, Mindy commented and looked up into the trees where Jasmine's screams were still echoing. It's what she always wanted though, some guy to sweep her off her feet. Alexis gave her an odd look before shaking her head. Yeah, some guy, probably Yarden nowadays, not some monkey, the blonde retorted before chasing after them herself. Come on, we have to go save her. Mindy blinked. Oh right, she gasped in realization and followed the blonde. Oh man, do we have to? Cyrus trembled fearfully. He was forced to run after them when Jaden grabbed his shoulder and dragged him along with him. No backing out now, Cy. Damnit. Cyrus' defeated wail echoed almost as loudly as Jasmine's screams of terror. Yarden shook his head as he hopped lightly through the trees above. Zane should really show that guy how to work out. It'll do wonders for his confidence once he puts on a little muscle, he mused. Too bad Yarden didn't come along. We could really use him right about now. Alexis complained from the front as she struggled to catch up. Yeah, well, maybe you'll listen to me speaking sense in the future. He rolled his eyes as he easily caught up to her. He made sure not to overtake her though. Why? Because running as wildly as she was provided him quite the view in that short skirt and the way her voluptuous chest heaved and bounced with each deep breath as she ran. And it was times two as well with Mindy along. This was even better than the physical education classes. The more time she spent at Duel Academy, the more times Alexis felt her worldview being tossed topsy-turvy. A renowned professor of dueling like Growler being beat by some no-name kid? Some new kid just picking up discarded cards and crushing everyone and anyone in view. The unbeatable Zane whom even her brother couldn't defeat, utterly demolished by the same kid using discarded cards. The way her heart fluttered in her chest around said kid after spending all the time she had with him and what he'd done for her. Then the mythical suddenly became real and dual spirits were revealed to her and she finally had a clue as to what happened to her brother. Only for secret experimental duelist monkeys to suddenly be a thing. Trained and experimented on by a shady organization working out of Duel Academy Island no less. Alexis didn't know what to think anymore. Could it have been them? She bit her lip, eyeing the suited men worriedly. Could her brother and the others of the abandoned dorm have come across their experiments somehow and have been made to disappear? The thought clawed at her mind. She obviously knew of test animals that were experimented on and exposed to drugs before humans to make sure they were safe and such. It was cruel, but a needed thing. She'd been forced to accept that. This though? The way the short heavy-browed man almost gleefully bragged to them about how amazing a duelist Wheeler was and how he would never make the same mistake because if he did the monkey would be heavily punished and poked and prodded at until he learned his lesson. It was horrifying, cruel and inhumane. She still couldn't help the sigh of relief that left her as Wheeler kept his promise and let Jasmine go free after losing to Jaden. Wheeler, to his credit, was incredibly skilled as a duelist. better even than many obelisks she had seen. But Jaden was just that good, especially now that like her he had apparently gotten some advice from Yarden and enhanced his deck with even more heroes. The duel only lasted all of 4 turns and Jaden won decisively, but it was not at all a demerit to the monkey's skill as far as she was concerned. After all, Jaden had beaten her before he upgraded his deck after all. And her duel with him only lasted around the same length at that. He reeked of bananas. Jasmine sniffled as she hurriedly ran over to them. Mindy smothered a smile that Alexis noticed and hugged the girl. There, you're safe now. The black-haired girl comforted their friend. Alexis sighed and rubbed her forehead. Today really had not gone how she expected. I should have just listened to Yarden, or followed his head, she groaned inwardly. Or maybe just skipped class and asked him to join her. He most likely wouldn't have disagreed. And it would surely have been more productive than this. She needed to speak to him about dual spirits after all. And how they could possibly have tied into her brother's disappearance. Jasmine pulled away from Mindy and smiled at Jaden. Thanks for saving me, she smiled gratefully. Alexis blinked a bit surprised. Jasmine, after all, wasn't really a fan of Slifer's. She was possibly just that scared before, or possibly because of Yarden being a former Slifer she supposed, but what's gonna happen to Wheeler now? She looked at the monkey with a worried frown. He shouldn't have snatched me, but I don't think he deserves to be dragged back with these cruel needle-poking shady thugs. The auburn-haired girl cast a disgusted look at the 3 suited men. Spare me your childish feelings, you annoying brat, the short older man snorted, before pointing at the tech-clad monkey. Get this failure now. I can't believe he lost to a Slifer of all things. Clearly we need to be much more thorough with him. Roger, sir, the tranquilizer-wielding suited man nodded, and he and the huge mountain of muscle that reminded her of Titan in sheer size began to step forward towards Wheeler. Hold it! Jaden stepped in front of them and spread his arms wide to block them, casting a glance at the group of monkeys watching from the tree line, before turning back and narrowing his eyes into a glare aimed at the men. Wheeler doesn't belong with you. He belongs out here in nature, with his family. So that's where we'll be leaving him, got it? The men stopped, giving surprised noises and looking at him as if he were an idiot. Kid, what kind of hippie crap are you smoking? The larger of the two demanded. Cyrus was apparently emboldened by Jaden's stand against them. It's all right, Wheeler, we won't let them take you. Cyrus called over, grinning. Alexis eyed the huge suited man and bit her lip again. She knew from experience now some people just weren't going to play ball the same way lawful people like her did. If they try it, I'll call the T.V stations. The blonde still added on after Cyrus though. If things turned violent, there was little they could do here as they were, but she still had to try. And I'll call the newspapers. Mindy added. I'll call Yarden? Jasmine added after looking between the 2 other girls and thinking for a moment. Alexis blinked. I should have done that while the duel was going on. She almost smacked her for her foolishness. Things would be a lot different with him here. He'd already shown the ability to handle people like Titan easily after all. And she'd feel a lot more confident with him here. In response, the fist of the largest man lashed out and caught Jaden in the cheek, smacking him to the ground. Ah! Jaden gasped, grasping his face. Alexis' heart leapt in her chest as Jasmine and Mindy squealed in shock. She was afraid of this. Enough of the nonsense, you brats, out of the way, the shortest man snorted, walking forward and up to Jaden as the gun-toting suited man aimed at Wheeler, the monkey locking up in fright. Please, you think your threats scare us? You're just some useless kids. You should run along now before we have to hurt you, he laughed. Alexis' mind raced a mile a minute. What to do in this situation? Her eyes flickered to Cyrus, who had totally frozen. He was the only other boy here, but he wouldn't exactly be a help here. Is that right? A familiar voice suddenly spoke up from behind them. Yarden, you're here? Jasmine shouted happily before Alexis managed to turn. But when the blonde did, it was amazing how the rapid beating of her heart calmed down when she caught sight of him casually reclining on a tree branch overlooking the cliffside they were on. How long has he been there? Alexis wondered idly before putting it out of mind. She didn't care right now, it wasn't important, she was just glad to see him. Oh, you guys are like seriously in for it now. Mindy went from fearful to grinning in an instant. It was almost absurd how much faith her friends had in Yarden. Alexis would probably have questioned the validity of it all, if she weren't under the same effect. "Oh great, some other brat here to whine at us about how cruel we are," the rifle-wielding man snorted. "Heh, he's just like this little pansy hippie, don't mind him," his huge friend snorted while waving dismissively at Jaden, who was rubbing at his jaw and glaring up at the man. "I'll deal with him, we'll see how confident they are when I smack him around too," he claimed and began making his way over towards the tree Yarden was in. In response, Yarden slipped out of the tree and landed in front of it casually. "Is that right?" he snorted and began walking over to meet the man, not at all bothered by the seeming near 1 foot in height the man had on him. "You know those shithead?" "No, what brat?" the suited man asked. "That's my pal ye just punched. I hope ye don't hink him gonna let ye get away with it." A familiar thick Scottish brogue suddenly left Yarden's mouth. The man stopped, and his brows furrowed confusedly over his dark sunglasses. "Wha dash?" That was all he got the chance to say though before Yarden suddenly rushed forward, seemingly clearing the last few feet between them in the blink of an eye. The huge suited man gagged and doubled over as Yarden's fist was suddenly in his stomach. His sunglasses fell from his face and landed in Yarden's hand as he pulled back, and then his knee came up and Alexis winced as the sound of bone crunching rang out throughout the area. Loudly. Blood sprayed into the air from the huge man's sudden broken nose and he fell backwards, limp. "Who's a fucking pansy new, ya stupid wimpy wee cunt?" Yarden snorted, casually slipped the sunglasses on over his eyes and turned his attention to the last two men. "Right, knew you two are next fair your shite," he threatened the remaining two men and literally walked over the top of the huge man he just knocked out, stepping on his face, broken nose, and all as he began making his way over. How savagely brutal. There was utter silence as everyone stared at him gobsmacked. But despite his utter brutality, Alexis found herself enraptured at the way he swaggered forward, a snarl on his lips. A smile grew on her own lips. Her eyes flickered to the two remaining men that were staring at Yarden in horror. What are you doing?" Deal with him," the short older man gave a sputtering order to his subordinate. The rifle-toting man took his aim from Wheeler and aimed at Yarden. Yarden in response just continued walking forward, not afraid at all. "Go fair it, you poncy wee bitch," he snorted. "It's going up your arse though if ye dot." The tranquilizer gun trembled in his grip. A moment later, the suited man threw it down and sprinted away to the other side of the clearing. "I don't get paid enough to deal with crazy freaks like this," he shouted before disappearing into the jungle and vanishing from sight. "Joshua, get back here you co-dash," the older man shouted after him, but by then Yarden had already reached him and grasped the man by his collar and absurdly lifted him into the air one-handed. "All right there, old-timer?" Yarden bared his teeth at the older man. "And now boy, think this through, you don't want to go making an enemy of us, in fact we could use dash." "Shut it," Yarden cut him off, don't gee a shit." "Fey new own though? The monkey, he belongs to me. And to say I can stay in the jungle way ease family, alright?" "Why you can't, do you have any idea what dash?" Yarden casually tossed the old man to the side and the grunted as he slammed into the ground. "I just told ye it don't gee a shit." Yarden jerked his chin threateningly at the old man. "You're lucky I'm no ripping your head if after ye got ma pal hit you stupid old poofter." The Scottish teen took a threatening step forward towards the old man. "Knew if ye go anywhere near my monkey and ease family, I'll know, alright? And I'll fucking hunt ye doon and kill ye." "No, I'll beat it," he snarled. The old man gave a trembling shout before pushing up onto his trembling little legs and running away, leaving his unconscious subordinate behind. Yarden stared after him for a moment before turning to Jaden and walking over to him, holding a hand out to the brown-haired boy. "You alright, mate?" he asked, the thick accent suddenly gone. It was almost eerie how quickly he could turn that off and on. Jaden stared at him stupidly before shaking his head and laughing. It isn't bad bro, it'll just bruise a bit." He accepted the hand and let Yarden pull him to his feet. "But sheesh bro, you sure were brutal there." "Not that I'm complaining, you sure saved our butts there." Good. Yarden nodded before turning to look at the other four who were staring at him in various variations of stupefied shock. "And how about you idiots?" Alexis couldn't help the huff of amusement that left her, crossing her arms and shaking her head. "We're fine Yarden, thanks for saving us," the blonde replied. "That was kinda hot," Mindy added before any of the other two making them gape at her. "Good," Yarden repeated before looking at Alexis and raising his eyebrow at her. "Now what have we learned?" He was singling her out for some reason. She didn't know why though. If we're dealing with shady guys, always have you around to beat them up if they get violent, she hedged. Yarden blinked. Well, yes, but that's not what I meant. He sighed and gave her a deadpan look. I mean, how about using that pretty little head of yours and employing some of that common sense? Why the hell were you idiots searching for Chaz in the jungle? Alexis opened her mouth to reply, before promptly freezing. We were following Jaden, she replied. Yarden palmed his forehead. You're supposed to be the smart one, he groaned but dropped it and turned to face Wheeler, who was just kind of staring at them, head cocked to the side. All right, monkey boy, Wheeler was it? Feel free to go run off and be with your family now. If those guys come back and bother you, just come find me at the academy. You know where that is? Yeah, he spoke to the monkey. It was amazing in a way how he casually just rolled with it and didn't ask any question, just started having a conversation with a monkey. Wheeler cocked his head to the other side before his helmet flashed. Understood, understood. Wheeler thanks you, the mechanical voice echoed from his helmet as he replied. Right, one thing though before you leave, Yarden said and stopped Wheeler in his tracks as he was about to make his way over to his family. The monkey looked at Yarden and cocked his head to the side again, and in response, Yarden walked over to them and promptly wrapped his arm around Jasmine's waist and hoisted the girl up over his shoulder. This is mine, I'm the only one allowed to kidnap her. Jasmine yelped. Yarden, put me down, she demanded, her cheeks going red. Then her eyes suddenly widened. Wait, what do you mean kidnapped? How long were you watching us? She demanded. Long enough to see how stupid you were all acting. He snorted. Wheeler understands, made of strong human. Wheeler nodded, and then turned and made his way over to his family. Mate, what the heck do you mean, mate, you dumb monkey? I never agreed to anything like that. Jasmine's flush turned neon red. Don't you think you're teasing her a bit much? Alexis raised her eyebrow at him, only to yelp herself as she was suddenly tossed his other shoulder. Yarden, what are you doing? She couldn't help but laugh despite how things suddenly turned. Don't think you're getting off scot-free. In fact, I should spank you as punishment. I literally told you where Chaz went before you left the classroom and you still ended up in this stupid situation, the Scottish boy retorted. This sweet booty is now the property of the great pirate Yarden Odhar. Anyone with objections should speak up now or forever hold your peace. What about me? Mindy hopped over and pouted at him before Alexis or Jasmine could retort themselves. If I had a third arm, I'd claim that booty in the name of the great Yarden Empire while I'm at it, he replied without missing a beat, and Alexis, looking over her shoulder, could see him grinning. Well, you can just follow along. Attempting to flee will just result in me chasing you down. Escape is not possible. Now his name was an empire. Ah, you say the sweetest things. Mindy beamed. Jasmine on the shoulder opposite Alexis slumped and just gave up. You know what, I don't even care anymore. The auburn-haired girl simply gave up. Probably the smartest decision any of them had made all day. You know, Jay, now that I looked at this, it's obvious, Cyrus sighed in defeat, nodding his head. Yarden is just built different than us. That's just 'cause he works out, bro. Maybe we should too. Jaden laughed and pat the blue-haired boy on the shoulder. Alexis saw Cyrus' eyes go to her and Jasmine hanging over Yarden's shoulders. You think so? His eyes shined hopefully. It didn't take a genius to realize what he hoped for. Well, sorry Cyrus, but you'll need to look somewhere else for booty of your own. Alexis snorted inwardly. Her and her friends were apparently already the property of Yarden Odhar. Duelist profile, Yarden Odhar. Name, Yarden Odhar. Age, 15. Country of birth, Scotland. Occupation, student of Duel Academy. Student dormitory, Obelisk Blue. Current funds, 193,150 DP. Bank account, 360,350 pounds. Bonded spirits, Ranryu, Decoy Dragon, Rare Metal Dragon, 100 Dragon, Spirit of the Breeze, Fairy Dragon, Chaos Necromancer, Soul Tiger, Larvae Moth, Griggle, Outstanding Dog Marin, Catnipped Kitty, Unhappy Maiden, Skull Servant, Archfiend Marmot of Nefariousness, Goblin Calligrapher, Serpent Marauder, Blade Rabbit, Steel Scorpion, Dream Sprite. Abilities, massively enhanced physical parameters. Enhanced senses. Increased growth rate, Draconic Aura. Enhanced endurance. Enhanced recovery rate. Enhanced dexterity. Enhanced bone durability. Enhanced healing factor. Enhanced reflexes. Enhanced agility. Enhanced flexibility. Magic resistance. Dex, Dragon Spirit, Magician Girl, Skull Archfiend, Mishmash. Chapter 22. Later, with the mess of Wheeler put behind them and classes ended for the day, dusk already falling over the island, Alexis found herself doing her level best to ignore the longing stares following after her. She didn't really mind that they constantly checked her out, but it was annoying how long they kept leering after her and how many did it. She could feel many gazes on her from behind prickling on the back of her head. But she should have expected this. She after all was in the Obelisk Blue male dormitory right now after all. She didn't have a chance today to ask him about what she saw the other day and her suspicions with the Chaz drama getting in the way and waylaying her, and then the debacle with those creepy scientist thugs and Wheeler. And as it turned out, once again Yarden was right about what Chaz got up to. Because they were found by Professor Banner on their way back to the academy and he helpfully informed them they caught up with Chaz just as he was sailing away in one of his family's private yachts. In retrospect, it was foolish of her to get caught up in the flow of Jaden and the others and be led around looking through the jungle. Hey, Alexis, a taller fit boy with short brown hair dressed in a gray polo and white shorts stopped and grinned at her as she passed him in the hall on the way to her destination. Not interested. Alexis absently shot him down, noting in the corner of her eye that his eyes went wide with horror and dismay at the instant rejection. Well, she didn't have the time to care about whoever he was, she had too much on her mind right now. What she saw the other day and today even had her head spinning with the possibilities. And she knew of only one person that possibly had the answers she sought. So the busty blonde made her way through the Obelisk Blue male dormitory, up the stairs to the level the first years were on, and made her way to a specific room she had only been to once before and knocked on the door. There was no answer for a few moments. So she knocked again, louder this time. Finally, she heard a muttered curse from beyond the doorway and the sound of footsteps approaching the door before it suddenly swung open, revealing Yarden. Yeah, he asked through a wide yawn, rubbing at his eyes and not even looking at her yet. Her eyes scanned his body. He was clad in nothing but a pair of red shorts, with nothing on his feet and his torso bare, showing off a toned physique. Was he always this broad? Alexis wondered as her eyes took in his arms and shoulders. She didn't think so, she'd had her eye on him from the first day after all, and now looking closely she could notice a definite increase in the broadness of his arms and shoulders. He opened his eyes after rubbing them and then blinked. Oh, Alexis, the hell are you doing here? He raised an eyebrow at her. Don't you prefer to avoid this place with all the mutts scrounging after your hotness? Hello to you too, Yarden. Alexis rolled her eyes, ignoring the fact that yes, he was spot on. Can I come in? The Scottish teen shrugged and merely pushed his door open wide and gestured for her to come in. Mi casa es tu casa, he replied. I said that right? Said that correctly, right? Alexis corrected his grammar with a smile, getting him to roll his eyes. But yes, more or less. Though your pronunciation could use a little work, she added in stepping into the room. Honestly, she is surprised again with how neat and tidy he kept the place, beyond bottles of liquids to drink sitting beside his bed and his laptop on his ruffled bed as well. Looks like he really had been asleep and woke him up. She felt a little guilty. He'd been complaining about feeling bad all day and she and the others had caused him to miss napping in class to recover, and now she'd woken him up. Well, sorry, Miss Three Languages, we can't all be bilingual and speak Japanese, French and Scottish. He closed the door and rolled his eyes. One of her eyebrows rose. I speak Japanese, French and English, she corrected reflexively. That's what I said. Yarden shrugged and made his way over past her to slip over the back of his couch and land on the front of it, sitting down. So what brings you to my room at this time, love? He looked over his shoulder and asked. He seemed to think for a moment before wiggling his eyebrows. Coming by at this time, when everyone outside their rooms probably saw you on the way up here. The rumors will be scandalous, he teased. They'll probably think I'm having my wicked way with you, all manly and Scottish-like. What did being Scottish have to do with being manly? Well, if using those guys out there as comparison and Chaz, she supposed it had to be something. Good, maybe they'll stop bothering me if they think you're screwing me and that you'll beat them up for bothering me. Alexis rolled her eyes, unbothered by his teasing. The reason I'm here though, there's something I want to talk to you about, she said, and made her way around to sit down on the couch beside him. I figured as much. You wouldn't drop in unannounced if it wasn't important. You're too nice and polite for that. Yarden ran his hands through his hair before looking her in the eyes. So you want to know about the dual spirits, right? Her eyes flew wide open in shock. "You knew I was there and saw you," she gasped, understanding dawning on her. "Course I did," he chuckled. "I've got monster spirits hanging around all the time. You think I wouldn't notice you following me when they were out and about all around me?" Alexis' eyes narrowed. "You wanted me to see that," she accused, though not angrily. "Things were just beginning to fit into place now. It was how you found me so quickly when Titan attacked me and what you told me when you carried me back." "Ask me no questions, I'll tell you no lies," that was more or less what he had said to her. "You wanted me to see spirits were real before talking to me about it," Alexis mused. "Seeing is believing after all. You wanted to tell me about spirits for a while now, but why?" Her mind ran a mile a minute. And there were only two possibilities that came to mind to her: either you wanted to be truthful with me about all this because of your attraction to me and the route of pursuing a relationship with me, or... The blonde trailed off for a moment, biting her lip. "Or, you know about my brother's disappearance and spirits have something to do with it and you wanted me to understand." Despite her best efforts, hope soared in her chest. She didn't want to get her hopes up just to be wrong. But this could be it. She couldn't help but think. 8 of 10, right on both aspects, but missing one that I suppose I'll keep close to the chest for now," Yarden hummed in amusement before sobering and giving her a small, soft smile. "I did want to be truthful with you for when you become my girl, though it's more for your benefit, and I have a rough idea of what happened to your brother." Her breath stopped and it felt like her very heart came to a stop in her chest. You do?" Alexis whispered. Shocked, awed, grateful and more all at once. A river of emotions slammed into her and it took all she had to stop tears from forming in her eyes. She could finally know what happened to her beloved brother. She must have stared at him for a good 30 seconds before he gently placed his hand over the top of hers. "Calm down, love, I've got a feeling how much this means to you, but you're gonna want to be on top of your game here to understand all this," Yarden said soothingly, breaking her from her stupor. Despite herself, her lips twitched up a bit, a small piece of amusement flaring in her as her fingers threaded between his own and held his hand on instinct. Surprisingly gentle for the guy who threatened to shove a gun up someone's ass just earlier today, the blonde chuckled inwardly. "Okay, I understand." Alexis nodded at his words, suppressing her emotions. Though, she did not let go of his fingers. They were warm and strong feeling, comforting even. It galled her pride a bit how much holding his hand soothed her. "Right, to understand what happened to your brother, we have to start with the very beginning," Yarden nodded and began. "What do you know about shadow games?" Her eyebrows rose. "Shadow games?" "As in the duels of darkness that scary stories are told about and Professor Banner likes to lecture on," she replied and almost snorted at the thought, a moment away from telling him how silly this was beginning to sound and that they were only fairy tales told by parents to scare kid duelists to get into bed. Only, dual spirits were supposed to be fairy tales as well, so the words caught in her throat. "That's where dual spirits tie into this," Yarden nodded, continuing on. "Back in the day, way back in ancient Egypt, dual spirits, mostly of the Ba variation, monsters born from people's souls through magic shenanigans, were used to fight duels in the literal sense, actual fights to the death, and the loser would generally find themselves swallowed up by darkness." Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Magic, monsters born from the soul and now souls swallowed by darkness. It was utterly surreal. But she couldn't refute it at all. What was worse, a horrible sinking feeling began to well up in her. There was only one reason why these duels of darkness would be relevant to her brother. Now, there was this big evil godlike monster dude called Zork. He's not really relevant anymore though since Yugi Moto punked his bitch ass, the Scottish teen continued on. But back then, the Egyptians slaughtered a village of hundreds and used their souls to make a link with Zork by accident and make 8 absurdly powerful magic items called the Millennium Items. "I've heard of them," her eyes widened again. "So they were actually real?" There were rumors of Yugi Moto being involved with them and even Pegasus having something to do with them as well. And so they came from some absurdly powerful monster spirit then called Zork? Who, from her understanding here, got defeated by Yugi Moto? It really was completely surreal and sounded like a bad fictional story. But yeah, there's a lot more to it than that, but the relevant part here is that Zork basically was the god of a place called, well, it had a ton of stupid of names, but the one people most call it is the Shadow Realm, Yarden pushed on, and if you lost a shadow game or a duel of darkness, it generally was invoked by that place and the loser was punished in some shape or form, mostly by being dragged to the place and tortured in a bunch of horrible ways. Horror seized her. And that's where my brother is?" she asked, lips trembling. "Don't worry, I don't think he is," he squeezed her fingers gently, "like I said, right? Zork got his bitch arse toasted by Yugi Moto and pals, he's not relevant anymore even if his realm is still kicking around. But, those people that were in the abandoned dorms, they were studying the shadow games and the magic involved in it all." Her trembling faded and her thoughts cleared a bit. So that was what was going on at those dorms. She bit her lip, but my brother, Alexis was about to deny the fact that her brother would never get involved in something so evil sounding. But, he was ever the adventurous sort and would probably have found the idea of it all quite thrilling. That was just like him. That idiot, a sardonic smile split her lips. Now we move on to the next part. This is important as well, Yarden broke her from her thoughts. There was more. Do you know why this island is a thing at all? Why Duel Academy was built in the first place? I have a feeling you're going to tell me it wasn't just to teach people the next generation how to duel. Alexis couldn't help but reply with a snort. Well, you'd be half right, Yarden snorted as well, but well, let me put it like this. Every monster card has the potential to be or become a spirit or was based on a spirit in the first place. That includes the Egyptian god cards, pretty much by far the strongest monster spirits in creation more or less. That made sense. She had no idea how powerful such beings would be, and she didn't really want to know, but it made a lot of sense. After all, if this Zork was a godlike being, what else could stop it but godlike opposition? She wasn't exactly sure how godlike power was supposed to look like in this situation, but she got the gist of it at least. The 3 god cards are now gone, but there are 3 spirits left that rival them known as the sacred beasts, he added, and well, to put it simply, they're utterly nuts, apparently godlike in their own right, and they're sealed on this island, behind 7 special gates supposed to be guarded by duelists. Alexis blinked slowly. "I'm sorry, what?" she gaped at him. "I must have somehow heard wrong. Because I'm pretty sure you just told me there's 3 godlike monster spirits sealed on an island with a school of teenagers." "You heard right, love," Yarden chuckled, shaking his head. "Now, this thing about them being guarded by duelists? See, this academy is supposed to be raising the best duelists around up to protect them because they can only be gotten to through mystical magical mumbo-jumbo invoked through beating the 7 guards in a duel." No, he couldn't be serious. He really, truly, honestly couldn't be saying what she thought he was. That was absurd. Crazy. Utterly stupid. And there's some lame-ass group out there all with the ability to invoke duels of darkness looking to steal these 3 cards. They call themselves, He trailed off for a moment, the 7-star assassins or shadow riders or something like that. Honestly, it's such a fucking Chuyuni name I couldn't take them seriously. Her hung low. This was beyond stupid. Who thought this was a good idea? Maybe she was a hypocrite for thinking so when she wasn't acting very smart herself today, but it still had to be said. That's utterly stupid. Moronic, she just couldn't stop herself from blurting out. If she understood what he was saying. Then the school expected the 7 best students at the academy to duel these stupid-sounding thieves in games of darkness and put their very souls at risk. And off the top of her head, 2 students that would be chosen for that role came to mind immediately. Zane and Yarden himself. They were by far the best duelists on this island. Right you are, love, Yarden chuckled, but the point of me bringing this crap up is that I'm pretty sure those idiots had their hands in the abandoned dorm from what I've been able to dig up. So, once they turn up, I'll kick their asses for you and find where your brother is for you and bring him back even if I have to go kick the shit out of Mr. World of Darkness himself, he promised, looking her right in the eyes and smirking his usual utterly, absurdly confident shit-eating smirk. Despite herself, Alexis felt her heart throb and her cheeks warm up as he stared right into her eyes. He really did care for her, huh? That's not fair, you know, she pointed out, yet despite her words she couldn't stop her lips from curving up, saying things like that, going to those kind of lengths for me, at this rate? At this rate, what? She'd end up falling for him? Maybe. Or maybe she was already falling. Her stomach fluttered as he merely smirked wider at her words. It was almost amusing now that she thought about it. All those rich guys promising her anything she wanted, the honeyed words and compliments and more. None of it had ever made her the slightest bit interested. Yet here she was, completely in over her head with a guy who blatantly leered at her, made no attempts to hide he wanted to bet her, was crude, violent and arrogant. He was practically full of character's flaws. Yet, at the same time he could be sweet and helpful. He was reliable, protective and strong. And he went out of his way for her to great extremes, just as he was saying now. He was the complete opposite of the typical guys who came onto her. And it was totally working. She honestly couldn't blame Jasmine for how muddled he left her. He left Alexis just the same after all. How such a blatant asshole could be so endearing totally escaped Alexis. But she couldn't help but fall under that same sway. But, sweet as his words were, "I can't let you do that," she shook her head in refuting them. "You're gonna put your soul on the line if you do it." Despite how much she longed to find and save her brother. A large part of her didn't want to lose Yarden in the process. It was odd she realized how much he actually meant to her. They'd only known each other a month. "They'll come regardless," Yarden pointed out before shrugging. "Besides, I've already signed up for the position." Her eyes widened. "You did," she gasped, then her eyes narrowed. "Why did you go ahead and do it without telling me all this first?" she demanded, worry and fear seizing her heart. "Because they're hardly the worst thing out there, and I struck a deal with Chancellor Shepard to prepare in advance for them," Yarden answered easily, apparently unbothered by tone. He reached over to the coffee table in front of the couch, which she just now realized had multiple deck holsters sitting on it, and slid open one of them and pulling out a single card. "Come on Alexis, you know me. I'm not going for just your brother, I'm going for the whole shebang. I'll grab everything these shadow riders or whatever have for my own benefit when I crush them, save your brother and come out stronger than ever." To punctuate his words, he held the card up for her to see and her eyes widened. She'd never even heard of anything like this card before. Cyber Dark Dragon Level 8 Dark Machine Fusion Effect 1000/1000. This monster cannot be special summoned except by fusion summon. When this monster is special summoned, select one dragon-type monster in your graveyard and equip it to this card. This card gains ATK equal to the equipped card's ATK. This card gains 100 ATK for each monster card in your graveyard. If this card would be destroyed by battle, the equipped monster is destroyed instead. What was that? It was a terrifying-looking monster. But that name, Cyber Dark Dragon. It obviously had something to do with the cyber dragons that Zane had. He said he struck a deal with Chancellor Shepard. Her eyes shot even wider open with realization. Chancellor Shepard, who was the head of the Cyber-style dojo and the one to pass on the cyber dragons to Zane. It reminded her eerily of Cyber and Dragon. And it even had 3 component monsters to make it up. Cyber Dark Keel, Cyber Dark Edge and Cyber Dark Horn. It seemed to be a machine monster just like the normal cyber dragons, but its effect targeted dragons in the graveyard. On first glance, she'd say Cyber End Dragon was much more powerful, but, in the hands of Yarden, well, he had a way with cards that just surprised her. And he loved playing both dragons and messing with the graveyard. He has a card that lets him send a fusion monster from the extra deck to the graveyard if I remember right, the busty blonde thought to herself. Extra foolish burial, she thought. With that, he could send one of his 5-headed dragons to the graveyard, could he not? And immediately use this card's effect to attach 5-headed dragon to it for a monster with 6,000 attack points at the very least. But considering it needed to be fusion summoned, through that method it would be beast of at the very least 6,300 attack points. That seemed like a play Yarden would like to pull. But, she knew it wouldn't be just that simple. He wouldn't be showing it off to her so blatantly if it was something that simple. It fits well with your deck and is a powerful card, but I don't see why you show it off to me as if it's some big achievement, she pointed out, looking into his eyes. After all, as great as it was. She'd seen Yarden summon 2 5-headed dragons in a single turn and then use Gift of the Martyr to give the attack points of one to the other for a massive 10,000 attack point monster that put even Cyber End Dragon summon through Power Bond to shame. It just didn't quite measure up to that. Well, let me put it like this, sweet cheeks, Yarden grinned, Cyber Dark Dragon has a spirit. A very young spirit, but despite how young it is, it's nearly as powerful as my strongest spirit, Serpent Knight Dragon. She knew it. Alexis knew there had to be a reason he was so gosh damn protective of the reputation of Serpent Knight Dragon. Why he was so angry at Rex Raptor. Because Serpent Knight Dragon was no mere card and not just the headliner of his deck, but a spirit he seemed to be very proud of. I don't know how to quantify that, she replied, like, how strong is Serpent Knight Dragon as a spirit? I got ya. Yarden tapped his chin and hummed, alright, let me put it like this. If Serpent Knight Dragon wanted, my good pal could absolutely demolish this entire dorm in a few minutes. Ah, that powerful. That really was quite daunting. After all, the obelisk blue male dorm was actually the size of a large castle. So just one single spirit of his had greater firepower than a tank or military fighter jet. How many spirits do you have? Alexis couldn't help but ask, and how many are near that strong? She somehow was dreading the answer she was going to receive. 34 love, he casually answered, leaning back into the couch. As for how many are around that level besides Cyberdark Dragon? Well, Hyozanryu and Dark Magician Girl aren't far off, neither is Relinquished and Rare Metal Dragon. Ranryu and 100 Dragon are getting close. So that was where his confidence, nay sheer arrogance, stemmed from. He practically had an army at his beck and call, and by the looks of it and going by his words, was not at all satisfied enough to settle with that. At least it explains how he got Dark Magician Girl, she snorted. He found the spirit of it. She really wasn't sure how to respond to that. He basically had enough firepower to destroy a small city or something given enough time. There was one horrible question that came to mind though. How does Serpent Knight Dragon measure up to the god cards or these sacred beasts sealed here, she asked. Clever girl, his lips curved up and he nodded approvingly. He sighed and reached up to scratch his cheek, and that motion alone did not spell good things. My buddy is powerful, absurdly powerful. But he'd be lucky to survive a single hit from any of them, going by his own words. Yeah, I was afraid of that. Alexis swallowed heavily. How would one even go about opposing something like that? Going by that scale, the god cards and the sacred beasts, one of each had to be in the same range as a nuclear warhead in sheer destructive output. And there was 3 to each of the 2 groups. And to make matters worse, normal people like her couldn't even see them outside of specific circumstances. If someone nefarious got their hands on them, the kind of destruction that could be wrought on the world was catastrophic. And you're just going to pick a fight and get involved in all of that? Something I can't even imagine having the strength to fight against, Alexis asked him, voice filled with trepidation. For me? Among other things, yes, Yarden answered without missing a beat. Besides, you're overlooking a single thing. And what's that? She asked, confused. Remember when I told you of monsters born from people's souls? He asked. Her brows furrowed, but she nodded. Well, it can be applied in reverse and you can bond with spirits. Ah. Let it never be said that Alexis was slow on the uptake. You're saying the reason why you have so many spirits is so you can bond with them all, she gasped in realization. You're combining all of their power at a focal point, using yourself as the center of it all and amassing a greater power than they have alone. That was why he was showing off Cyberdark Dragon and basically boasting of it in front of her. Because, from Chancellor Shepard, he'd gained another spirit with the power to destroy a castle in minutes. With that alone, he doubled the power of Serpent Knight Dragon more or less, and then there was all the other spirits he had. If he didn't have quality, he would fight back with quantity. It was genius in its simplicity. Smart and gorgeous. Is it any reason I don't want to tattoo my name on that sweet booty? Yarden winked at her teasingly. Even with all the heavy information dropped on her, she couldn't stop the amused giggle that erupted from her lips. He really did never change. His typical attitude with her drained the tension from her and she slumped back onto the couch beside him. So you've got it all figured out, huh? Alexis smiled lightly at him. If these spirits are so important though to your plan, why did you give me one? She was sure of it now. Starboy had to be a spirit. Caught onto that too, huh? He hummed, before suddenly reaching over and cupping her cheek and staring into her eyes. I know you pretty well at this point, I think, Alexis. I know for a fact you won't be content to sit on the sidelines, and you're definitely within the top 7 duelists at this school, so you'll be offered a position just like me. Her cheeks once again warmed up. She whispered. He was right. On both accounts. She wouldn't be content to sit on the sidelines, and he really did know her. Her heart thumped loudly in her chest though at his words. He had such a high opinion of her abilities. And it meant a lot to her that he thought so highly of her skills as a duelist. The thing is though, without something like a spirit watching your back or some kind of magic artifact to help you out, Yarden continued on, you would have been at a really bad disadvantage in any shadow duel. I just wanted to give you your own fighting chance. Ah, so he'd been looking out for her all along. A warm cozy feeling infused her body and she felt her eyes draw slightly shut, becoming half-lidded, and she leaned forward, her head approaching his, lips approaching his own. Just a few inches from his lips though, before she gave him her first kiss, his hand slipped from cupping her cheek to blocking her lips. I thought you wanted me, she mumbled, confused. You have no idea how much, he replied without missing a beat, but I just dropped a ton of crap on you, and it's obviously affecting your emotions here. If you still feel the same tomorrow, you can do it then. How annoying. Why was he acting so chivalrous at a time like this when he'd more or less blatantly told her how much he wanted to bet her before? This guy was so contradictory at times. His hand slipped from her mouth to around her shoulders and yelped softly as he pulled her into leaning against him. For now though, how about we just chill out together and watch a movie? He grinned down at her before wiggling his eyebrows. If you're a good girl, I may even feel you up a bit. Alexis couldn't stop her lips from curving up into a huge beaming smile. Sure, that sounds nice, she accepted his offer. Duelist profile, Yarden Odhar. Name, Yarden Odhar. Age, 15. Country of birth, Scotland. Occupation, student of Duel Academy. Student dormitory, Obelisk Blue. Current funds, 193,150 DP. Bank account, £360,350. Bonded spirits. Ranryu, Decoy Dragon, Rare Metal Dragon, 100 Dragon, Spirit of the Breeze, Fairy Dragon, Chaos Necromancer, Soul Tiger, Larvae Moth, Griggle, Outstanding Dog Marin, Catnipped Kitty, Unhappy Maiden, Skull Servant, Archfiend Marmot of Nefariousness, Goblin Calligrapher, Serpent Marauder, Blade Rabbit, Steel Scorpion, Dream Sprite. Abilities, massively enhanced physical parameters. Enhanced senses. Increased growth rate, Draconic Aura. Enhanced endurance. Enhanced recovery rate. Enhanced dexterity. Enhanced bone durability. Enhanced healing factor. Enhanced reflexes. Enhanced agility. Enhanced flexibility. Magic resistance. Dex, Dragon Spirit, Magician Girl, Skull Archfiend, Mishmash. Chapter 23. Master. The gently whispering voice of Dark Magician Girl roused Yarden from his slumber. He yawned, eyes blinking open sleepily to find himself seated on the couch. He'd fallen asleep sitting up. A rare thing for him to do. Odd as it was, with how good he was with cold temperatures, even in his new body, he preferred sleeping with a cover on him. He honestly had an easier time sleeping upside down on a chair than sitting up. Hey, he smirked sleepily as he remembered waking up in the position once. He'd fallen asleep like that as a joke, just to prove he could. His best buddy had woken him up like 2 hours later, and the first thing he saw was an older chick stripping on webcam. It was a girl they'd met on an online game who'd been totally into his pal. An English chick. Good times, good times. The chick totally wanted his buddy and invited them down to meet her, and she even had a cute friend to keep him company if he went along. Though, that was a story for another time. Yawning again, Yarden stretched his arms up and out and felt the stiff bones in his body pop. After a moment of stretching, he stood up and did the same with his legs. Thanks, he nodded gratefully to the beautiful scantily clad monster spirit sitting on the couch beside where he had been sleeping. No problem. Dark Magician Girl beamed, flashing him a cheery thumbs up. I didn't want to leave you sleeping in that position too long and give you a sore back. Honestly, it's too bad you haven't bonded with me yet, or I'd have let you sleep and use these as a pillow. The blonde spirit pat her luscious bare thighs, drawing his attention to them. Truly a travesty. Yarden cursed his soul for not being strong enough to adapt even quicker. Those curvy thighs looked way more tempting than his very expensive goosefeather pillows. Not that he could truly complain. After all, with the evolutions of 100 Dragon, Ranryu and Rare Metal Dragon, his soul had jumped considerably in strength and didn't need to adapt to their own growth and strength. Which meant the timetable had been sped up considerably. Today was the day he would start taking the first of his strongest spirits into his soul. Relinquished. Still, you surprised me last night, Master. Dark Magician Girl grinned impishly at him. Even after teasing the girl about groping her and have her practically welcome you to do it, you didn't take advantage. Do you have performance issues? She wiggled her eyebrows teasingly. Yarden snorted. Just wait until I bond with you and I'll show you which one of us will end up with performance issues, he retorted mock-threateningly. Dark Magician Girl raised a hand to her mouth and gave a mock gasp, pretty blue eyes lighting up with a fake shock. Oh no, is Master going to punish me? She said with a fake trembling voice. Without making a single motion, she suddenly began to float up into the air until she was eye level with him before casually spinning in the air and presenting her scantily clad, curvaceous rear end to him. Have I been bad, Master? The Scottish teen tore his eyes from the sight before he ended up with a horrible case of blue balls. You sure have, I'll be keeping this in mind, he replied, before letting his eyes drift over to his bed where Alexis lay slumbering under the covers, head atop one of his pillows. She fell asleep within an hour. There wasn't exactly a lot of time to get into it. All the information he dropped on her must have been hella draining. He was a massive prick. A horny one at that. But he wasn't that big a piece of trash to take advantage of the situation when she was reeling about the information about the missing brother she'd been searching for answers on for months, whom she thought dead all this time, and the reason behind his disappearance. Heh, you're not as big a tough guy as you like to claim, Master. Dark Magician Girl teased one last time before fading out of sight. Yeah, I fucking am. Yarden grumbled petulantly under his breath. Did she not see what he did to those fuckers yesterday? He even took that one big prick's sunglasses with him as a trophy of his conquest. He put that out of mind and looked back at Alexis sleeping in his bed and just eyed her for a moment. She looked good there, sleeping in his bed. The only way to make that image of her being there look even better was to have her in there wearing one of his shirts. She clearly needed the rest. I can leave her for a little bit longer, he mused quietly. After all, it was time to get the next part of his bonding underway. He eyed his deck box on the coffee table in front of his couch and picked it up, pulling one card from it and bringing it up to eye level. Relinquished, level 1 Dark Ritual Spellcaster effect, 0 out of 0. As he looked the card over, a sphere of light gently seeped out from the card image and expanded outwards, forming into a large plate-bodied demonic-looking behemoth twice his size. The one glowing green eye figure Relinquished had examined him intently for a moment, before the monster bowed to him. Today's the day, mate. Yarden grinned, and despite the terrifying appearance Relinquished had, he only felt happy as he reached his hand out to touch it, though his hand phased right through the second he did. He didn't really know much about Relinquished. Amongst his spirits, it was the one that communicated the least and couldn't speak. And it tended to stay in its card for the majority of the time. He did know it was sensitive about reactions to its appearance, and the way its green eye glowed brightly at his attempt to touch it told him a lot. Relinquished was probably tossed aside because of his looks despite his amazing power. He would never understand the fools at this academy. Relinquished was fucking badass looking, right up there with dragons. And its fusion form, Thousand Eyes Restrict, was utter nightmare fuel, perfect for intimidating people. A moment later, Relinquished phased out of view, body disappearing bit by bit as the demonic-looking spirit eased forward and sunk into his body. He felt a rush of energy flow through him and grimaced a bit. It was hard to describe. But, his power felt bloated? It was a bit uncomfortable, that was for sure. And it was really the first time he'd felt anything like that while bonding to his spirits. So the stronger spirits really are no joke, huh? He mused. With how powerful he'd become over the month here and all the spirits he'd bonded with. It said a lot about Relinquished strength that this was the first time he'd felt like this. He was tempted to sit down for a bit to get used to and be better able to deal with the feeling. But that was little bitch talk. And he was already shirtless. So, Yarden decided to spend the next near half hour getting a light workout in. Some stretches, some planks, some pull-ups, some push-ups, some sit-ups and more. You know, the basic bitch stuff to get ready for the day and wake his body up. Even though he'd still most likely just sleep through most of his classes. Once he was done, he threw his clothes on for the day after a quick shower and decided it was about time to wake up Alexis. She still needed to head back to her dorm to get a change of clothes after all. As fun as it would be to have her turn up in a rumpled uniform after staying the night in his room, it might aggravate Growler or something. And honestly, he quite liked having Growler in his corner. "Hey Sleeping Beauty," Yarden gently touched his hand to Alexis' shoulder and shook her lightly. "Time to get up." Alexis groaned cutely, but interestingly, didn't fight the rousing and opened her eyes with a small yawn. "Yarden," she said his name groggily, eyes half shut. "That's right, you fell asleep in my room last night, remember?" he replied. She nodded slowly. "I remember," the blonde replied, eyes opening fully. She raised her arms into the air, stretching them out, and then surprised him by grabbing him around the shoulders and pulling him down. "By the way," she said, staring right into his eyes, their noses touching and her hot breath washing over his face. "Yeah?" Yarden asked, swallowing heavily and voice coming out hoarse at the sudden turn of events. He was not at all expecting this. "I'm not such a wimpy little girl that I let my emotions carry me along and attempt what I did last night." Alexis suddenly rebuked him sharply, eyes narrowing angrily. And suddenly her lips were on his and her tongue was forcing its way into his mouth. Yarden's eyes widened. "Ha!" They only separated a few minutes later, both of their lips bruised and faces flushed. "All right," Yarden chuckled, "I take back my words from last night, happy?" Alexis smirked, a little bit, she replied, sitting up and rubbing at her lips. "I enjoyed that more than I thought I would," she admitted. "You weren't so bad yourself considering it was your first," he grinned at her. "Considering how much of a man slut you are, I'll take that as a compliment," she snorted. "Good, it was one," he shrugged. "Now as fun as this is and as much as I would love to help you get even better at tongue wrestling, we kinda need to get a move on if you want to get back to your dorm and get some fresh clothes before classes start up." Her eyes widened lightly at his words and her head whipped around to the nightstand beside his bed where the clock sat. "Only 40 minutes till classes start," she bit her lip. She continued staring the clock for a few moments before sighing and shrugging. Alexis turned back to him, looking him in the eyes, and a small grin spread across her lips. "Honestly, I don't really feel like it. How about we just stay here and skip class for the day? You can teach your new girlfriend here all about how to be a better kisser." His eyebrows rose. "Are you feeling okay?" "You, Alexis Rhodes, practically the class president and all-around good-goody perfect student, want to skip class?" he asked in disbelief. Dipping out of a free period to look for a missing classmate was one thing, but skipping school for the day entirely? "And girlfriend?" he asked. That was a quick jump. Not that he was at all against it. Besides one little thing. Alexis laughed. "What can I say, you're a real bad influence on me," she replied, "and yeah, girlfriend. That's what you were aiming for, right? I've decided I kinda like the idea of that. And I'm not the type to hang around and let what I want slip out of my fingers." She was that type, yeah. "I'm all for it." His smile almost split his face in half. "What about Jasmine and Mindy though?" Alexis shrugged. "What about them?" she replied, seemingly unbothered. "Your flirting with them didn't bother me before, and your intentions have been upfront and blatant the entire time. Why would it now? Frankly, I think you wanting to snatch them up as well will be good for me in the long term." "Ha! Well, okay then." Yarden rubbed his hands together excitedly. "Scooch over, beautiful," he told her, motioning for her to move a bit further over the bed and free up some space for him. Alexis did as bid, sliding across and gesturing for him to get into the bed beside her. He wasted no time at all kicking off his shoes, jacket, and top. After over an hour of laying in bed cuddling with his new, very, very curvaceous and beautiful girlfriend, the sound of his room shower was far too distracting for Yarden. Thankfully, while she was busy, he had some things he could take care of. The Scottish teen hopped out of his bed and sat down at his laptop, grabbing his PDA and connecting it to the laptop's USB port. Recently, he'd taken the time to install a music player on it, and so now he just needed to download some songs. First up is the Celtic songs and the Scottish anthem and other shit, he mused, finding what he was looking for and not at all popping them into an illegal download application. It definitely wasn't LimeWire that he was surprised to find existed in this world as well. Not at all. He was a moral and upstanding individual after all. With that done, Yarden popped open his email inbox and checked through his emails. It was mostly all class assignments that were double sent just to make sure students had no excuse for not turning in homework and such in newsletters. Some crappy spam. Spam from clubs in the academy itself, which was a weird way to go about trying to recruit people, but whatever. Scrolling down, he came across an email from his bank, specifically the agent he was talking to over the last few weeks. The sudden upsurge in cash he had did not go unnoticed after all. And neither did his very public, very televised defeat of the Paradox brothers alongside his gorgeous girlfriend. They'd been offering a contract of sorts. Basically, they wanted first dibs on him if or rather when he went pro. Because seriously, he could go pro right now. After all, that twat Aster Phoenix was already a pro duelist and Yarden could wipe his ass with his smug stupid face. Destiny heroes were trash, by the way. Odd though, I said I'd get back to them, he mused, clicking on the email. He wanted to get a second opinion on things from people who knew better about this kind of thing, maybe ask Zane his advice since he would surely already have plans in motion for going pro next year. He blinked as he read over the contents of the email. Blah blah blah, something high-grade clientele. As such, it is only proper that a client of such standing should be treated to first-class reception, he read inwardly. Then at the end, was the bit that surprised him the most. They had upgraded his bank account's interest rate. Yarden just stared for a moment at the interest rate. He muttered to himself, staring in a bit of a daze. This he was not expecting. They were clearly trying to butter him up and buy his loyalty to the bank. And he couldn't say it wasn't working. Because they had raised his interest rate by a total of 2.6%. That wasn't including his old interest rate. So together, it came to a total of 3.1% interest rate in total. And today specifically was the day the monthly amount was added to his account. Both from his benefits as a minor and the bank's interest. His hand moved automatically, basically on instinct, and picked up his PDA and brought up his internet banking account. £371,882. Yarden coughed as he saw the amount. His total amount of money had risen by £11,000 on sheer interest alone. What the fuck? He could hardly believe what he was seeing. Sure, he'd made that absurd amount through dueling down scrubs and betting on himself, but it was still hard to believe. Going from an expected £2,000 of interest a month to £11,000. An amount that would only increase from here. He would probably have stared at the PDA in that daze for a good little while, if the sounds of the shower didn't suddenly turn off. Alexis was done showering, it seemed. He quickly clicked off of the online banking application. A few moments later the door clicked open and out walked his girlfriend of all of an hour, and once again Yarden's eyes widened. She was wearing little more than a towel that exposed a huge valley of shiny, creamy damp cleavage, while she dried her hair with another one. "Hey, can you turn on your radiator or something?" Alexis asked as she ran the towel through her hair to dry her dirty blonde tresses out. "My uniform got a little wet while I was in there." Yarden shook his head and stood up. "Sure," he shrugged, standing up. The radiator was just beside his desk, so he basically only had to bend over from there to turn it up. He usually kept it off at all times because he wasn't a big fan of the heat, but things were already smoking hot in his room, so a little more clearly wouldn't hurt. "Bit bold of you to just come out in a towel, isn't it? We've only been dating for an hour." Yarden teased, plastering a smirk across his face as he sat back down. This coming from the boy who said getting naked in hot springs together was more of a fifth date kind of thing. Alexis raised her eyebrow at him with a snort, completely unbothered by her state of dress. "Well, we've basically had way more dates than 5 at this point if you think about it, and I'm not fully naked under this anyway." The blonde made her way over to him and lowered the towel from her head, enough for him to see a pair of dark blue bra straps trailing up over her shoulders. "Point," Yarden accepted the logic with a nod. "I just didn't think you'd be so quick to undress around me. You aren't really a slutty girl after all." "Oh please," Alexis snorted, "it's hardly that different from a swimsuit. I told you earlier, didn't I? I'm not some wimpy normal girl. The fact that you managed to make me fall for you at all speaks wonders as far as I'm concerned. Do you really think I'd agree to date you, then be uncomfortable to get naked around you?" Yarden opened his mouth to respond, before stopping and pausing. Now that she mentioned it. If there was one thing Alexis wasn't, it was shy. She was the gung-ho type that chased after what she wanted like a hound possessed. And incredibly competitive. The last hour before she jumped into the shower was proof enough of that. She was not happy about him dominating their kisses and spent the last hour trying to beat his tongue down with hers. Good times, good times. And as if to prove her point, Alexis smirked at him and let go of her towel, allowing it to drop and pool around her feet, showing off her body to him. Yarden swallowed heavily. He'd been with girls before, he was no virgin. But never a girl like Alexis. Her large voluptuous breasts were practically spilling out of her bra, a snazzy little dark blue lacy number, yet despite their sheer size were somehow incredibly perky looking. She had a toned creamy stomach, with full hips that made him just want to wrap his arms around them, leading down to a pair of long luscious legs with athletic and juicy looking thighs, and a pair of dark blue lacy panties that hung low on those delectable hips of hers just completed the picture. He was silent as he took in her outrageous body. Alexis' smirk grew even larger. If I knew all I had to do was this to shut you up, I might have done it sooner, the blonde teased, turning on her heel and walking back to the bathroom, hips swaying. The lacy dark blue panties she was wearing? They were a tea-back. It split between the full rounded cheeks of her arse wonderfully and made for a real awe-inspiring sight. I can't believe this, Serpent Knight Dragon huffed in his head. You're more gobsmacked at looking at a half-naked girl than you were when you first saw me, an ancient and powerful spirit. What has happened to today's youth? Back in my day, if a young man saw a spirit like me, he'd fall to his knees in worship. Back in your day, people probably still thought washing would kill them. Yarden shot back on instinct. People got smarter through the ages. Or at least I did. His eyes were glued to that amazing perky round arse after all. At least until Alexis disappeared into the bathroom. Oh, burn. Guess not even dragons are immune to spitting fire. Dark Magician Girl giggled. Serpent Knight Dragon huffed in annoyance, and they both fell silent as Alexis returned from the bathroom carrying her uniform and made her way over to Yarden and the radiator. His eyes may have been locked onto the way her large breasts rippled and jiggled lightly with each step. It was mesmerizing. He'd never seen a pair of tits so fantastic. Or well, not as bared as this. Yeah, good save, master. Mine aren't much smaller and just as perky. Dark Magician Girl giggled once more. He pointedly ignored her. He was having enough trouble as it was not tenting out his shorts with the Serpent Knight Dragon between his legs. You better remember this, for I will. You have gone too far this time, master. Serpent Knight Dragon promised revenge. Come on, it was a compliment. Yarden protested inwardly, trying and failing to drag his eyes from his half-naked girlfriend. When it comes to me, there's like no higher honor, really. You named your penis after me. Serpent Knight Dragon growled, before falling silent and cutting off their connection for the moment. Yeah, and his dick was amazing. He didn't get what was so bad about it. His dick was the dick that was gonna go inside that gorgeous bodacious blonde next to him someday after all. Even if every guy in the obelisk blue dorm stacked their dicks together, they could still never measure up to the mighty heft of his big ol' Scottish Willie. And he couldn't exactly name it after Five-Headed Dragon. While the sheer epic size and power fit. It only had one head. So, what are you up to? Alexis broke him from his thoughts as she laid her uniform over the radiator to dry out and turned towards him, arms crossing under her breasts and pushing her cleavage up even further, to the point where it looked like a gentle breeze would make them spill out. Where was an elemental hero avian spirit when you needed him? Just downloading some music on my PDA, Yarden replied. I'm figuring it will be useful for some me time, or when I'm working out. He'd need to order earphones and one of those arm straps for it from the mainland since they weren't sold on the island. But it'd be worth it. It'd help him tune out the grumbles and glares practically every other obelisk blue sent him. Alexis' eyebrows rose with interest. Oh? Let's see what kind of music you're interested in, she said, and promptly and boldly sat in his lap and looked over his laptop screen. Really? Yarden asked, deadpan, his hands freezing. The temptation to feel her up was almost overwhelming at this point. And holding back his mighty Serpent Knight Dragon from awakening and emerging from his lair was impossible. Oh. Alexis made a sound of surprise and looked over his shoulder at him with slightly wide eyes. Is that a dual disc in your shorts or are you just happy to see me? She teased and promptly wiggled her voluptuous ass into his crotch. Yarden stared at her, a little shocked at her actions. He wasn't going to lie. Since when were you like this? He couldn't help but ask, arms winding around her slim waist and pulling her back into his chest. He was not at all complaining. It just seemed out of character for Alexis, the ever-serious competitive girl. Since I started dating you an hour ago, Alexis replied without missing a beat, sinking into his chest. Come on, it's not like I've not known what you wanted since we first met. Just because you have actual feelings for me now, doesn't mean the fact you want to bed me has changed. Oh, I definitely want to bed you, Yarden nodded, unashamed of his desires. Water was wet, the floor was made of floor and Alexis was gorgeous beyond belief with a walking wet dream for her body, but I don't want you to act like this just to make me happy. It honestly surprised him too that this was an actual fact he felt. He'd had crushes before, but not anything that made him feel the way he did for Alexis. What an absolute sap he'd become since coming here. Yet oddly he did not regret it. How very, very odd. I'm happy you feel that way, but I'm not acting this way for you, you know. Alexis suddenly turned in his grip to face him, her large and soft breasts squishing against his chest and pressed her forehead against his. I told you already, didn't I? The feeling aren't just coming from your side. I'm not trying to butter you up or anything because of what you've done for me or what I can get out of you. You're not the only one with an interest in their new romantic partner's body in this room. The busty blonde nudged his nose with her own and wound her arms up over his shoulders. Then she kissed him. Hard. Hard enough he outright tumbled out of his chair. But he didn't even try to brace himself. That was the good thing about being amped up by super powerful spirits. A little fall like this. He barely felt it. Alexis straddled him as he absorbed the impact of their fall with his back and her tongue battered into his own in an attempt to twist it into submission. His hand slid down from her waist to her backside and he greedily filled his palms with the soft, pliant bouncy flesh of her full-arched cheeks and squeezed. Alexis moaned into his mouth and ground herself hard down into his crotch. Yarden couldn't help but grind right back up against her, bucking his covered erection into her. They kept at it for a good 2 minutes before Alexis broke the kiss and pulled back. Her hazel eyes were half-lidded, her cheeks red and a string of saliva connected their mouths. She wiped her mouth and cast a glance at their conjoined crotches. Though, up for this as I am, that part's gonna have to wait a bit, she pointed out. Yarden snorted. I figured, he huffed. You tease, he accused, using his grip on her lovely bounce-arched cheeks to pull her down and thrust up into her one last time. Alexis gave a half-squeal half-moan of surprise, and that was Yarden's cue to surge up into a sitting position, trapping her in his lap with his grip on her backside and capture her lips in another kiss. They would not leave his room for hours. Duelist profile, Yarden Odhar. Name, Yarden Odhar. Age, 15. Country of birth, Scotland. Occupation, student of Duel Academy. Student dormitory, Obelisk Blue. Current funds, 193,150 DP. Bank account, £371,882. Bonded spirits, Ranryu, Decoy Dragon, Rare Metal Dragon, 100 Dragon, Spirit of the Breeze, Fairy Dragon, Chaos Necromancer, Soul Tiger, Larvae Moth, Griggle, Outstanding Dog Marin, Catnipped Kitty, Unhappy Maiden, Skull Servant, Archfiend Marmot of Nefariousness, Goblin Calligrapher, Serpent Marauder, Blade Rabbit, Steel Scorpion, Dream Sprite, Relinquished. Abilities, massively enhanced physical parameters. Enhanced senses. Increased growth rate, Draconic Aura. Enhanced endurance. Enhanced recovery rate. Enhanced dexterity. Enhanced bone durability. Enhanced healing factor. Enhanced reflexes. Enhanced agility. Enhanced flexibility. Magic resistance. Energy absorption. Dex, Dragon Spirit, Magician Girl, Skull Archfiend, Mishmash. Chapter 24. Why does this nonsense always happen around me? Alexis couldn't help but wonder. Surely she wasn't that attractive? Nobody was attractive enough to warrant this kind of crazy sycophantry. Honestly, all she wanted to do was have a talk with a friend of hers after Professor Crawler let her know of a sighting of Chaz out at sea. Jaden, as it happened, was being punished by one of the third-year obelisks for hitting Growler with a tennis ball, so she had to head to the tennis court where he was being punished to let him know. She had let Yarden know, of course, but, honestly, the blank, uncaring look he'd given her at the mention of Chaz said it all as far as his interest in their runaway classmate went. Honestly, the way he'd looked at her as if she was an idiot had been almost embarrassing. Either way, she knew at least Jaden did have some semblance of thought for Chaz, so she decided to let him know, and Jazz and Mindy decided to tag along. Only when she arrived at the tennis courts where Harrington was punishing Jaden, he started acting like a crazy person because she exchanged words with her Slifer friend. And somehow that proceeded into a duel between Jaden and Harrington where the winner was to be her fiancé. The actual vapid stupidity of it all actually left her stunned long enough not to tell them off before they were already dueling. And maybe she was being overly critical, but she wasn't impressed by the duel at all. Harrington's deck was nonsense. A tennis-based deck that relied on the luck and the opponent not guessing correctly at questions he asked them. So it wasn't really a surprise to her when Jaden mopped him up in just a few turns with the upgrades he'd made to his deck recently. That elemental hero Stratos had a nasty effect that only got nastier the more elemental heroes were on the field. And it was the perfect counter to Harrington's deck and playstyle. Well, that settles that, I suppose. Jasmine shook her head. Yahoo, he's getting married. Cyrus cheered as the duel ended in Jaden's victory, pumping a fist into the air. Then the younger Truesdale paused as he apparently realized how silly that sounded and gave the three girls he was standing beside a hesitant look. I mean, probably, someday. He added lamely. I guess? Jasmine rubbed the back of her neck. Lexi, what are you going to do about this? Mindy gave the blonde at her side a worried look. No, damn it, she was cut off before she could even reply as Harrington fell to his knees and began banging his fists on the ground. How could this happen? Alexis was supposed to be my little obelisk pixie soulmate. Alexis cringed. He looked up glaring with teary eyes at Jaden. How could I lose my love to this Slifer sludge? He cried out, very dramatically. Jaden honestly just looked supremely confused. So, I guess I'm your fiancé, he turned to Alexis and asked, though, no idea what that means to be honest. Are you kidding me? Jasmine gaped at the body while Mindy just laughed in amusement. Alexis kind of just felt a headache coming on and slowly rose her hand to her forehead and rubbed it where the ache was beginning to throb in her temple. That's probably for the best, Jaden, the blonde replied with a sigh. If you actually did know and try to push for it, Yarden wouldn't take to kindly. She hadn't let slip yet what was going on between her and Yarden. She'd been waiting for a good time to reveal it to her friends and more specifically Jasmine. But honestly, she was just letting it drop right now and here because she didn't want to deal with any more nonsense like this. She was going to take advantage of her relationship status and dump all these idiots on Yarden to deal with for her. Possibly the best plan she'd come up with in all her life. Dating? I think I should know what that means. Is it some kind of food? Jaden mused, stroking his chin before shrugging. Well, either way, I don't want to piss off a bud, especially not Yarden. He's scary when he's mad. As he finished though, there was total silence as everyone else gathered in the tennis court just looked at Alexis in utter shock. Harrington had even shut up on his crying and whining to stare gobsmacked at her. Yarden really is just built different. Cyrus broke the silence that was beginning to stretch on a few moments later. That did it and the flood broke. Well, that was quick. Mindy blinked and uttered calmly. Since when? Jasmine, though, exploded, whirling on her blood friend and demanded. Since a few days ago, Alexis replied. Remember, when we both didn't turn up for class? I was at his place all through the night and we decided not to bother with class. Or rather, she did and Yarden was only too happy to comply. When she left his dorm room later that day her lips had been bruised and she'd had to keep her collar fully buttoned to hide the blatant hickey he'd given her. You told us you were feeling sick. Jasmine accused. Hell, you told Professor Growler that as well. Alexis shrugged. Well, I mean, I wasn't gonna just tell him what I was actually up to. And what were you up to? Jasmine asked, eyes narrowing at her suspiciously. You'll have to be more specific, Alexis responded, raising her eyebrow at her friend's blatant jealousy. We talked, we ate, we watched television, spent a few hours making out in his bed, cuddled a bit, a bunch of things really. Jasmine's eyes widened in utter shock, and dare she say it, a little hurt. The auburn-haired girl's mouth opened and closed a few times as she tried to find words to respond with. But she never got the chance. Because apparently what Alexis just revealed was too much. For Harrington, that is. The older boy surged to his feet and tossed his tennis racket off to the side and rubbed at his eyes. Wah! He burst into tears again and took off running towards the exit of the tennis courts, crying all the way. Alexis cringed again watching him go. What was wrong with that guy? Well, at the very least his absurd reaction to her and Yarden was enough to even shock Jasmine into silence for the moment. Alexis took the moment to open her mouth to let her friend know she was totally okay with Yarden dating her as well, but before she could, Harrington cut her off, again. Damn you, Odyssey-er. His tear-filled voice echoed back towards them as he disappeared through the exit of the courts. Only to be cut off by the sound of flesh striking flesh and his voice choking out with a whimper of pain. Harrington came cartwheeling back into the tennis courts, landing face first in the artificial grass with his ass in the air. Don't go screamin' my name like that, ya daft ponce, a familiar thick-accented brogue casually spoke. People'll end up hinkin' and a wee fag way yay. Well, that solved that issue, she supposed. A second later, Yarden came swaggering in as if he owned the place, like he always did, hands casually resting in his pockets. What's up, bitches? He greeted them all, completely ignoring their senior that he had just knocked out with a punch. Hey Yarden. Jaden beamed and greeted with a big grin, waving over to the Scottish boy of the blues. Dude, you just missed me in this totally sweet duel. Couldn't have been that sweet, mate, if it was against that simp. Yarden lifted a hand from his pocket and pointed over his shoulder with his thumb at the down Harrington. I already thrashed him and like 40 other guys in a single turn at once. Oh, he was in that as well? Jaden blinked in surprise before laughing. Man, I wish I could have seen that duel, it must have been crazy. If you blinked you'd have missed it, amazing as I am, it wasn't that exciting to watch, mate, Yarden shrugged. Besides, you could probably pull the same kind of thing without much issue, it wasn't hard. Only Yarden can talk about being 40 obelisks at once in a single as if it isn't impressive at all. Cyrus shook his head, no wonder he's dating Alexis. Yarden's head whipped around at his words. Oh, you found out about that? He asked the shorter blue-haired boy, before his eyes drifted to said girlfriend and raising an eyebrow at her. After all, Alexis was the one who wanted to keep their relationship status under wraps for a little while before revealing it, to ease her friends into it since she knew Jasmine was totally into Yarden as well. But what could she say? She was just tired of all the horny mutts trying to hump her legs all day long, and she had a solution she couldn't resist the temptation of. So in response, Alexis gave her boyfriend a sheepish smile and lame shrug as if to say, what can you do? Should you really be calling your girlfriend a bitch? Mindy changed the subject and teased the boy. She knows what I'm about. Yarden winked at the black-haired girl, swaggering his way over and throwing his arm around the blonde's shoulder, and blatantly in front of them all pressing a quick kiss on her cheek. Alexis rolled her eyes, but didn't pull from his embrace. It wasn't like he actually meant anything by it. Jasmine visibly grit her teeth, before sighing and slumping a bit. You sure do jump between girls quick, huh? She couldn't help but snipe a bit. Alexis winced a bit. Not really, Yarden shrugged. I was pretty blatant in my interest in all three of you, I think. Alexis was the one that responded first. He didn't sugarcoat his response at all. The response seemed to make Jasmine slump even lower. I suppose so, she nodded lightly. And he was pretty straightforward and upfront with his intentions. Jasmine really did have nobody to blame but herself on that front. If she wanted to, she could have been dating Yarden first. Something roiled in her stomach at the thought. An odd feeling that she wasn't used to. Alexis didn't like it. Oh poo, looks like we're gonna have to stop flirting all the time, Mindy pouted, trying to clear up the tense atmosphere. That's too bad, it always makes class more interesting. Why? Alexis asked her black-haired friend. Jasmine was the one that answered, because hello, he's your boyfriend now? And I don't mind, Alexis shrugged. I'm not gonna ruin you guys' relationship just because I'm dating him now, that would be totally selfish. Besides, Yarden did so much for her and was planning on doing so much for her as well. It would be kind of ungrateful and selfish of her if she did so, and why she was okay with it. That doesn't make sense. Jasmine spluttered, I mean Lexi, you've always been super weird when it comes to dating scene, but this is taking the cake. We're talking about your boyfriend here, flirting with other girls while in a relationship with you. Right there with her Lexi, Mindy nodded vigorously, make with the splainy, no girl wants her boyfriend flirting with other girls. While all this was going on, Jaden was just looking between them all, getting progressively more lost with each new sentence, and Cyrus was just staring in gobsmacked shock. And maybe you'd be right if it was just two random girls, but you guys are my best friends, and you clearly like him too, Alexis replied. I'm not gonna cut you off from the way you guys interact just because I'm dating him now. But Lexi, we blatantly flirt all the time, Jazzy totally wants in those pants. Mindy gestured wildly, while I'm content with the flirting for fun, we all know what Jazzy wants and she can't do that with you dating him already. And why can't she? Alexis cocked her head to the side, like I said, as long as it's you guys I don't mind you guys doing it too. Because normal people want the one they like to themselves, Lexi. Jasmine finally exploded, eyes wide and angry. The auburn-haired girl opened and closed her mouth a few times, looking for more words, before giving up and storming away. Saw that coming. Yarden winced, watching her go. Can you blame her? Mindy asked dryly, this is just weird after all, even for me. Not really, the Scottish boy shrugged, to be honest, even I'm still wrapping my head around the fact Alexis is completely fine with me basically dating you two as well. The boy looked back at Jasmine as she disappeared through the exit of the tennis courts and winced again. I should go talk to her, he mused. Go for it, Alexis told him, maybe you can make her see reason. She knew was being weird about it all, she wasn't stupid at all and was at the top of her academic classes for a reason. But she'd never placed much importance on dating or ever being with a boy until Yarden. It always seemed so odd to obsess over it as much as her friends did. Now though, while the thought of Yarden and another girl did make that uncomfortable roiling feeling appear in her stomach, she realized that Jasmine must be feeling that, multiplied by a massive amount more since she didn't have Yarden to herself like she did. It was jealousy after all. A novel concept for Alexis really, to feel jealous of a boy being with another girl. And she didn't want her friend to feel like that as well. Jasmine and Mindy meant a lot to her, they met in dual prep school and practically grew up together, and they were a big reason she didn't go out of her mind with worry for her brother over the past year. It was hard to describe it all really and put into words what she meant in it all. But, as long as it was Jasmine and Mindy, she was okay sharing Yarden with them. Honestly, it almost felt weird not to. After all, since the school year started, they'd practically transitioned to a foursome and the four of them were near enough always hanging out together, in class or otherwise. It was like a package deal, and Alexis was completely okay with that. Right, Yarden nodded and pressed a kiss against her cheek that left it tingling before pulling his arm free from around her shoulder. I'll just go do that, it's pretty much my fault for being as amazing as I am, he nodded to himself and jogged after Jasmine. He paused only to give the down Harrington a kick on the rear as he passed by. Which he totally deserved. Lexi, we totally need to talk some more, come on. Mindy grabbed the blonde's arm and dragged her away, pausing only to toss Cyrus and Jaden a wave. Sorry guys, looks like something really important has come up, we'll have to hang out later. Sure, Jaden agreed, looking completely lost. Catch you later, he waved after them. Do you think Yarden would take me on as an apprentice? Alexis heard Cyrus ask Jaden, hopefully. You know what the best thing about being a spirit-powered badass was? Being a fucking badass in general. Granted, Yarden was of course already a badass originally, but now he was simply a super badass. Anyway, the point was, he was awesome, mentally and physically. So honestly, even with Jasmine having a bit of a head start, it didn't take him longer than a few seconds to catch up thanks to his powerful Scottish spirit Chad Stride. Go away Yarden. Jasmine glared over her shoulder at him. I so am not in the mood to talk about this. Eesh, he resisted the urge to wince at the heartbroken glare. Come on, we'll have to talk about this sooner or later, he pointed out. Later's fine with me, she huffed, or actually, how about never? Never is better. Ugh, drama. So not his forte, his one weakness. How did she know? Rolling his eyes, Yarden sped up, getting ahead of the auburn-haired girl and slammed his arm into the wall, blocking her off. Jasmine stopped in her tracks, staring at his arm, before glaring at him again. "What part of I don't want to talk about this don't you understand?" she growled. "Sorry, not sorry," Yarden rolled his eyes, "but come on seriously, you hear I'm dating Alexis now and you storm off like this, dramatic much?" "Like you're one to talk about dramatic," Jasmine fired back, rolling her eyes, "you strut around like a peacock half the time." "That's just my Chad stride," Yarden corrected her with a huff. "Anyway, don't tell me you're gonna go off and sulk." Jasmine grit her teeth. Are we seriously doing this right now?" "Kinda, yeah," he shrugged. "I don't want you to go off all sad and mopey." "God, you're so full of yourself," Jasmine groaned, "and why don't you want me to do that?" "I'm kinda entitled to it, you know." "'Cause I don't want to see you like that," he pointed out. "I've made it pretty upfront I'm into you and like you." Jasmine's glare softened a bit before she sighed and slumped back against the wall. "So much for that, you decided to date one of my best friends," she replied. "Hey, I pretty much asked you out before," he refuted. "You basically blew it off." "That was just playful flirting, you didn't outright ask me out," Jasmine jabbed back. "If you asked me outright I would have said yes." "That's not all on me." Yarden fired right back. "You already laid out the terms for the kinda guy you wanted, you kinda have to tell me when I pass the bar." "Oh please, by time you hit obelisk you were already there and you know it." Jasmine jutted her chin out at him defiantly. "I was leaving it up to you." Yarden shrugged. Jasmine sighed, the tension leaving her as she lay limply back against the wall. "Well, I guess we both could have tried a little harder then," she admitted. "Not that it amounts to much, you're already dating Lexi." "Yeah," he nodded, understanding, though. "No," she caught on immediately where he was going and admonished him. "Lexi has always been really weird about dating, she never thought much of it at all until you, and her common sense is completely skewed on it." "I mean, you're not wrong," Yarden definitely agreed with her, "but at the same time, it's not like polygamy is illegal or anything." He should know, didn't look it up, but he did come across the fact that it was pretty much legal across the world now. Why? Because of Sito motherfucking Kaiba. Apparently his little brother was involved with two girls, whom he later broke up with. But, at the time, he was apparently madly in love with them and couldn't decide how to pick one or the other. And Kaiba, being Kaiba, decided fuck all the laws, his precious little brother could do anything he bloody well wanted. And tossed enough money at the problem to make it go away, or beat it into submission. Honestly, Yarden was just surprised Kaiba didn't just challenge the literal multiple United Nations around the world to a duel. Fucking Kaiba, man. If there was anyone to look to see how skewed the common sense in this world was compared to his own, Kaiba was definitely the leading man. Screw the rules, I have money. That was literally the definition of Sito fucking Kaiba. He did whatever the hell he wanted, because he could. He changed the world to one that fit his own desires, and ran rampant over it as he pleased. Granted, not that Yarden could honestly say it went bad. This world was literally better off than his own one because of Kaiba and making it revolve around a card game. Places that were at war for decades where he was from, were not here, simply because Kaiba forced them to adapt to card games. While the world wasn't perfect, far from it, it was a hell a lot closer to a golden age than the one he came from. And that was just fucking absurd. Because one super autistic rich teenager decided, card games were the fucking best and wanted to prove he was the best at said card game. It was crazy, but it was fucking impressive. Kaiba was a true blue Chad and Yarden admired the man greatly. If there was anyone in the world he aspired to be like, it was Sito fucking Kaiba. Yeah, because that's what a girl wants to hear the guy she has feelings for say, Jasmine snorted. Really, you have the emotional depth of a thimble. Hey! Yarden glared, offended. I at least qualify as a teaspoon. Despite herself and the situation, Jasmine giggled. Well, at least you can recognize that much, she mused, before shaking her head. It won't work out, there's too many reasons for it not to. And why can't it? Yarden challenged. I mean, I wasn't expecting this at all, and like I said would have been content with any single one of you girls, but given the chance. We're 15, Jasmine smiled, a smile that did not reach her eyes, a sad little smile. What do we know about relationships really? We're supposed to explore them at this age. It'll be hard enough with one girlfriend eating into your personal life, especially one like Lexi, and you want to add me as well? And even maybe Mindy? To be perfectly honest, Yarden hadn't thought that far ahead yet. His mind was still mostly on the upcoming threats he would have to deal with in the immediate future beyond worrying about how to balance a relationship. Honestly, he thought it would be easy in comparison to saving the world. Though, up for dealing with a bunch of that shit as he was, Jaden was on his own when it came to Yubel, because super extra awesome badass Scotsman he may be, but he wasn't touching that crazy with a 50-foot penis, that was also a lightsaber. And even beyond that, have you thought of how to even manage such a thing? Jasmine pushed on, like, I want my boyfriend to myself, I don't like wannabe wanting to hang out with you, only for you to be busy having sex with one of your other girlfriends. Well, when she put it like that, he could definitely see the aversion. Granted, not like he didn't already understand her position in the first place. He was just being a greedy fuckface cunt. And then there's the keeping the relationship itself afloat. Jasmine continued on again before he could get a word in edgewise. 3 girlfriends, really? Like, I know I said before I want a man that can support me and make sure I have a fulfilling life, but doing that for 3 girls? It's already a lot to expect for one. She really had thought this through, huh? It was funny that the one between the 3 girls of Alexis, Mindy and Jasmine, that the one that was most down to earth and mature about her life and future, was the one who freely claimed she was a gold digger. And Yarden knew, he understood all her points. But still, there was a chance. He was being selfish, he knew that, but he'd be a fool to pass up the chance to grasp all he wanted. He had the power. He was well on his way to having the money. Maybe he lacked the maturity still, but that would come in time. We're 15, yeah, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through, and I'm being a selfish asshole of the highest order, he agreed, but so what? A little hardship like that isn't anything to give you up for. I won't favor Alexis over you, and I'm already well on my way to being able to take care of even 3 girls. Left unsaid was the fact that Alexis would most likely go pro herself one day. Or, at least become a professor here at Dual Academy like she did in canon in the end, and that was quite the salary itself. Besides, you grew up with Alexis, you're best friends, like sisters even, he stressed. It's not like she's some stranger or you're uncomfortable around each other, hell, you even bathed together in that hot spring. Jasmine's eyes widened at that last part. How do you know about that? She demanded. Oh, wait, shit. Think of an excuse quickly, moron. Alexis told me. Yarden lied as easily as he breathed, like a piece of shit. God, he was a cunt. Either way, isn't it worth at least trying? I like Alexis a lot, but I like you a lot as well, and it's murder to even think about choosing between either of you. When he finished, Jasmine just stared at him for a few moments before shaking her head and smiling softly. You're right about one thing, you really are selfish, the auburn-haired girl mused. I am, he agreed without any attempt to deny it, but can you blame me when both you and Alexis are on the table? Oh, I definitely can, Jasmine snorted, but I can understand at least. But you're missing something. Yarden blinked. What's that? He asked, confused. You're dating Lexi right now, Jasmine shook her head. That's a bigger challenge than dating any other girl in of itself. Maybe try seeing if you can manage the challenge right now instead of trying to make promises like this. And before you could say anything else, she pushed off of the wall and made to leave, but paused. Oh, what the hell, one for the road, big guy, she turned to him with a small grin. He blinked. You're taller than me, he pointed out on reflex. Semantics. Jasmine snorted, and then stepped forward, her warm arms wrapping around his neck and her lips met his. It was an amazing kiss, that was for sure. Soft, warm and tender. But ended far too fast for him. Don't worry, I'm not gonna go mope, you have enough on your plate with Lexi without having to worry about me, Jasmine winked, and then just walked away. See how your relationship looks like with Lexi in a month, then we'll talk, she called over her shoulder as she sauntered away. Yarden stroked his lips lightly as he watched her leave, before his shoulders slumped and he sighed. You gotta work on your game, master, the voice of Dark Magician Girl rang in his ears, as she appeared beside him, floating in the air. Lord Adam had multiple brides lined up, his own harem to be before everything went to crap. Why not just claim the wench if you want her, master? Serpent Knight Dragon appeared on his other side with a scoff. Oh great, and here comes the back seat commentary. Wait. Yarden paused and frowned. Did you just claim Adam is manlier than me? He glared at Dark Magician Girl. That was totally implied there, right? If the shoe fits, Dark Magician Girl giggled in amusement, ice teasing. If he didn't go kaput slapping down Zork, he'd have had a massive harem, and so far you only have one living girl to call your own. You'll regret this when I can touch you. Yarden vowed vengeance. In response, Dark Magician Girl floated around to face away you and wiggled her beautifully shaped rear end in his face, barely covered by her tiny little pink skirt, so much so her lovely, full round-arched cheeks were practically in full view. Oh no, is Master going to spank me? God damn it. Duelist profile, Yarden Odhar. Name, Yarden Odhar. Age, 15. Country of birth, Scotland. Significant other, Alexis Rhodes. Occupation, student of Duel Academy. Student dormitory, Obelisk Blue. Current funds, 193,150 DP. Bank account, £371,882. Bonded spirits, Ranryu, Decoy Dragon, Rare Metal Dragon, 100 Dragon, Spirit of the Breeze, Fairy Dragon, Chaos Necromancer, Soul Tiger, Larvae Moth, Griggle, Outstanding Dog Marin, Catnipped Kitty, Unhappy Maiden, Skull Servant, Archfiend Marmot of Nefariousness, Goblin Calligrapher, Serpent Marauder, Blade Rabbit, Steel Scorpion, Dream Sprite, Relinquished. Abilities, massively enhanced physical parameters. Enhanced senses. Increased growth rate, Draconic Aura. Enhanced endurance. Enhanced recovery rate. Enhanced dexterity. Enhanced bone durability. Enhanced healing factor. Enhanced reflexes. Enhanced agility. Enhanced flexibility. Magic resistance. Energy absorption. Dex, Dragon Spirit, Magician Girl, Skull Archfiend, Mishmash. Chapter 25. You know, I've said it before, but I have to comment on it again. Zane mused aloud from where he stood looking down atop Yarden from above. But the rate of your growth is absurd, he said, crossing his bare arms, the tone definition of his biceps being easily noticeable since he was only wearing a plain dark blue singlet. You just gotta. Yarden grunted out as he pushed up, the long straight barbell in his hands, weighing a total of 530 pounds, raising up for the fourth time since he started. Believe in the heart of the grind, he finished, the bar raising up, before slowly lowering back down to be slowly brought back up again. What, is your name Muscle Moto now? Zane rolled his eyes. He was standing at the ready to help him in case he failed his reps, but the chances were slim. It's not that what you're doing is impossible, very impressive, but not impossible. It's the fact that you've reached this point so quickly that's odd. Your body is weird. Nope. Yarden smirked even as a vein pulsed on his forehead, and he completed the fifth rep of his sixth set at 530 pounds, setting it on the handles and sitting up. You just don't believe in the heart of the grind enough. He pressed his previous point while rubbing at his biceps. They hurt like shit, but the burn felt so good. After all, that pain was weakness leaving his muscles and being replaced by strength. You're not as funny as you think you are, Zane rolled his eyes, even as he unlocked the stopper on the bars and began to slide some of the weights of. Your turn to spot me now, the older teen added. Sure. Yarden nodded, standing up from the bench and helping him. Together, they removed more than half the current weight on it, bringing the total weight down to 230 pounds, taking a full 300 off. They traded positions then, with Zane getting on the bench and Yarden standing behind the bench ready to help him if anything went wrong like he had with him before. With a grunt of his own, Zane lifted the weighted bar up off of the handles and slowly lowered it down to his chest, before raising it up high. Let's see if you can catch up with me. Yarden grinned down at him. Zane didn't reply. Instead, he merely paused for a moment at the ascent of one rep and looked into the Scottish teen's eyes, before narrowing them and lowering the bar. Yarden's grin widened. It wasn't going to happen. He didn't doubt that Zane could reach the same weight as him in time, but by time he did, Yarden would have reached way beyond that weight. When he started, this body could barely bench what amounted to less than 100 pounds. Just the straight barbell alone without any weights added on was a struggle. He'd been here nearly 3 months now, and that had changed quickly. Even without relying on his power enhancing his body, at base, he'd already reached the point where he could comfortably bench 530 pounds. That was just one of the benefits of being a spiritually enhanced badass thanks to his ba. His innate recovery rate had been massively enhanced, where it would take people days, even weeks for a muscle to properly heal after lifting these kind of weights and improve. He was now capable of healing that damage and recovering in only a few hours at most, so he was capable of making full-on gains, at least twice a day. On top of that, his body's general abilities had been massively enhanced, including his metabolism, so he could eat more and bulk quicker, and this was added on to the fact that the potential of his body had been enhanced way beyond normal human limits for each body he'd gained. While other humans had basically a cap of how strong they could get physically, and he did too, the difference was, his own cap was much higher than others now. If he drew on his power to enhance his physical abilities fully, he could probably lift a full-on ton at this point. Maybe. He'd have to check that out somehow. So, how's things been with Alexis? Zane asked as he finished a rep, breaking Yarden from his thoughts. Pretty good, nothing to complain about. Yarden shrugged. Alexis wasn't exactly your typical girlfriend and wasn't really interested in the whole going out thing a lot. Granted, neither was he, going out to dinner wasn't really his thing. But it had been a good few weeks now since they started dating, and a good decent while since that big blowout with Jasmine, and their relationship hadn't changed all that much. Their dynamic was more or less the same, just with a little more added in, being more touchy-feely, kissing in general, and she spent a lot of time in his room. The absolute loathing glares he got all day every day had increased massively in intensity though ever since it became public that he was dating Alexis. Well, I probably brought a lot of it on myself, he snorted. He was a petty fuck and liked to rub the fact he was dating the obelisk's beloved queen in their faces. So he tended to hold her hand a lot in public, share some lovely public kisses and even have her sit in his lap in full view of her simps. Actually, did this count as a form of bullying? Well, it also wasn't all great. Mainly in the fact that while she still hung around and talked to them, Jasmine was keeping her distance from him and Alexis, and Mindy hung around with her a lot more to make sure she wasn't feeling too bad about the whole thing. So he'd not been hanging around with those two as much the past little while. But she'd come around in time. Hopefully. Well, once a full month was over he'd be sure to have a talk with her. Well, you're definitely getting a lot of enemies out of it, Zane huffed, moving through another rep. Alexis' popularity is quite absurd. Granted, I slightly understand their dissatisfaction. She is like a little sister to me, but even I found my eye wandering a few times on instinct. She is indeed that beautiful. What are they gonna do, cry about it some more? Yarden rolled his eyes, unfazed. That was really all they could do. They couldn't beat him in a duel, and he'd had a massive challengers since his new relationship came out, a bunch of them trying to make him bet Alexis on the duel, the weirdos. He never did and just mopped them up. They couldn't do shit to him physically, he'd waste them and they knew it. He didn't care about shit they said, or their feeble glares, and they definitely couldn't put him in his place by dueling. Apparently yes, Zane replied, making Yarden pause. There is now an official Yarden hate club. It has over 50 members as of its creation 5 days ago. Yarden blinked. What? He said blankly. Seriously? It was created by Harrington and Tony, and is an Obelisk Blue exclusive club. Zane was happy to inform. They actually invited me to join and offered to let me become president for whatever reason. Who the fuck was Tony? Wonder if I can join. Yarden couldn't help but chuckle. God, actually, now that he thought about it. That was utterly amazing. He loved it. Somehow I doubt it, Zane noted dryly, as he finished his set and sat up for a bit. Still, I have to admit, you're quite comfortable in your position, you don't seem threatened at all. Should I be? Yarden asked with a shrug. The vast majority of the males on this island are infatuated and lusting after your girlfriend, Zane pointed out. On top of that, she's been spending an awful lot of time with Cyrus and his friends Jaden and Chumley lately. Not really anything to be threatened by, Yarden shrugged again. Alexis is weird date-wise, none of the clowns around here have what it takes to win her over, and no offense but I don't really see any of those three as a threat to my relationship even if Cyrus has a crush on her as well. The little guy wasn't exactly the greatest at hiding it. And she'd been spending a lot of time with them lately, because she was helping them out. What, with the dual giant and then over the weekend just there the Eggwich thief? She'd told him all about it and even offered to let him tag along, but he just didn't give a crap about the events and gave a hard pass. There was really only 2 threats at all to his relationship with Alexis. The first being Jaden. He was who she would originally fall for, but he doubted it would come to that. Besides, Jaden was his bro. He'd never fuck Yarden over like that even if the slightest possibility of it coming to pass did come from somewhere. The second threat was someone challenging her to a duel and making it an anti-duel, where she would have to go out with them or fuck them if they beat her. Alexis, as intelligent as she was, still was all taken in by the duel customs around here. But it wouldn't come to that either. Because if anybody tried, Hashiningen would tell him, and then he'd break their fucking necks and then have his spirits dispose of the body, no duel involved. So yes, he didn't feel threatened at all. Cyrus does have quite a ways to go, Zane nodded in agreement, though a small smile spread across his face. He actually approached me not long ago. He asked me to help him begin working out. It seems he wants to follow your example a bit. Huh, that was interesting. Good on him. I'm a pretty great role model to choose. Yarden smirked and crossed his arms. Jealous, he teased. Not especially. I believe he is mainly following your example because you're both quite short. Zane shrugged and smirked back at him. I'm 5'6.5". Yarden snapped back on instinct, before growling as he realized Zane won their little game there and got the rise out of him. He'd grown half an inch since he'd gotten into this body. And his growth wasn't anywhere close to finished yet. He would totally hit 6 foot. It's fine, you just keep it up. You might catch up to me if you keep growing for another 20 years. Zane's smirk grew and he lay back down on the bench. It ain't just my body that's weird, you're freakishly tall for a Japanese guy. Yarden huffed. The guy was 6'1". Not even just him, Jasmine, Mindy and Alexis were all Japanese as well, and Jasmine and Mindy were 5'7" while Alexis was 5'8". They were way above the general height for Japanese girls. You're freakishly short for a Scotsman. Rumors I heard of your country growing up painted you all as orange-haired behemoth barbarians of pure muscle. Zane fired back. I suppose you at least have the muscle. What kind of Jap has crazy blue hair? Yarden sniped. The best ones. Zane shrugged and reached up to grasp the straight barbell again and grunted as he lifted it up once more. Speaking of crazy hair, have you heard? Yugi's deck is going on tour. Yarden paused. It is, he asked. That was now? He knew of course it was coming, but not how long until then. Yeah, Zane replied as he worked through his reps. Should arrive by tomorrow. Tickets will go on sale as well tomorrow at the card shop, so you'll have to get some if you want to go see. Might be a good place to take Alexis for a date. That would be like taking a girl to a museum for a date. Not really a good move, normally, but with Alexis, yeah, he could see his point. How'd you know already? Yarden asked with a raised eyebrow. I'm still the king here, kid. One loss doesn't disqualify me from the top dog spot. Zane smirked up at him. Professor Growler called me to his office earlier to let me know and gave me a ticket in advance. Big talk for someone still not ready to take me on again. Yarden rolled his eyes. Still, this was all good to know. Because things would be picking up soon from here. It wouldn't be long until the school duel, maybe a month, and then things would really rev up because the Shadow Riders would begin making their move. It was right after the school duel that the key holders were chosen. With his undefeated streak in him taking down Zane, Titan and the Paradox Brothers and then confronting Shepard and throwing his hat in the ring, he'd secured himself a spot as a key holder. And Yugi's deck itself would make for a good test for his newest spirits. Patience, my deck is ever growing in strength. I'll make sure to make you eat a loss to me soon. Zane promised. Ha! The next day, as classes ended early at lunch, Yarden was more or less the first out of the door. Granted, he sat at the back of the class with Alexis, Jasmine and Mindy, so it wasn't far, but he was still up and out pretty quick. Like, what's the rush? Jasmine huffed, having to speedily power walk to keep up with him. Yeah, you're never exactly one for staying in class long, but you tend to leave pretty slowly, Mindy pointed out with a raised eyebrow. You never really rush anywhere. I heard last night from Zane that Yugi's deck is going on tour and the first stop is here. Yarden slowed down a bit taller than him they may be, but they had to walk in incredibly short skirts and high-heeled ankle boots. The obelisk female uniform was great for guys to look at and made them look hot as all hell, but it wasn't exactly practical. It's going to be announced over the intercoms in a bit according to him. I figured we'd skip all that and go get tickets now. Wait, really? Alexis, who had just been following along, more used to his whims, paused, eyebrows raising, and a glimmer of excitement flashing in her eyes. Yup, Yarden grinned at her, stepping over to wrap his arm around her waist and resting his hand on her stomach. Not really all that exciting to me, but I knew you'd be super into it, so I figured I'd grab us all some tickets and we can go together. What you mean not exciting? Jasmine goggled at him. That's Yugi's deck. The best duelist like ever, the king of games himself. Ha, even Jasmine put that much stock in seeing it? And, one of his eyebrows rose in question, it's just some cards at the end of the day, and not any I really have an interest in now since I already have the only card in his deck that would be worth checking out. Ah, master, you're making me blush, Dark Magician Girl tittered in his head. I meant Curse of Dragon. Yarden deadpanned. He still wasn't happy with her for daring to insinuate a man who wore a spiked choker and leather pants, and who looked like he came straight out of a BDSM submissive club was more manly than him. He'd show her once he could get his hands on her. It wouldn't be long now until he acclimated fully to Relinquished's power and he could bond with Dark Magician Girl. Then, not only would she be able to guide him through using his energy for different purposes easier, he would give her that spanking she so deserved. Sure you did, she giggled, and can't wait, master, let's see if you have the guts. Besides, I never said that, I only said if you measure manliness in girls, Adam had way more than you. He had hundreds, you have one human girl, two maybes, and me. If you measure in power, he also beats you. Though if you measure in muscles, you win. TCH. That still meant he lost in 2 out of 3 categories. So competitive, she giggled again, fondly. Of course your only interest would be Dark Magician Girl out of Yugi's deck, Alexis snorted. Don't you feel any sense of awe at all? It's the best deck in the entire world. With it even a complete amateur could very well defeat pros. Debatable, Yarden pulled her gently into his side with a smirk. After all, I'm pretty sure I could take it in Yugi, he boasted confidently. Especially if it was the same one used in the original timeline that Jaden fought. Yarden would clap the shit out of that deck with his. Dimitri would be lucky to last 3 turns if it were that one. That deck was no threat without the god cards. It would be a lot tougher if it was the deck he saw him use last against Kaiba, though, after he learned about the new variations of cards he had from Dark Magician Girl. That shit was whack. Most of Yugi's iconic monsters like his Magnet Warriors, Magician Girls, and shit had all new powerful variations. Dude even had 2 new versions of Gondora, and who knew what else since he hadn't been in much public duels since his last one against Kaiba that got interrupted and cut off. Not to mention there was apparently a whole archetype around one of the cards and fusions he got from Dark Magician Girl, Alistair the Invoker, that seemed to be a pretty nasty archetype to duel against. There you go again running your mouth, Jasmine snorted, you proved us wrong before, so I'm not willing to say you don't have a chance, but do you really believe in your own hype that much, she asked, casting a brief frown at his arm around Alexis' waist before meeting his eyes. His smirk just grew. Baby, I am the hype, he shot back, and held his other arm out for her, inviting to come into his embrace. Her frown deepened and she shook her head, denying him. Somebody really needs to beat you soon before your head gets any bigger and you float off into space. She rolled her eyes, continuing on as if their little silent exchange never happened. It's not as cute as I remember it being in the beginning. That's just 'cause he's dating Lexi now, Mindy pointed out with an impish grin, and took him up on his offer in Jasmine's stead, stepping into his arm and wrapping it around her waist. I dunno, I think I'd pay to see him duel someone good enough to beat him. Alexis smirked over his shoulder at her black-haired friend. Might cool him off a bit and be a good learning experience at the same time. Ouch, Yarden Mock winced, tightening his grip slightly around both girls' waists and forcing them to begin walking with him. Excuse me while I storm off in a tantrum to brood. You'd have to let go of us first for that, genius. Alexis rolled their eyes. Yeah, see, I thought about it for a split second, and decided that brooding isn't worth letting go of my super hot girlfriend and her hot friend, he shrugged. I'll just have to not be an edgy wimp and deal with emotions normally. Hey, why does Lexi get super hot and I only get hot? Mindy pouted. Probably because he's seen me in my underwear, that or special treatment. Alexis shrugged. Mindy blinked. Huh, okay, fair enough. Wait, already? Jasmine shouted, shocked. Yarden smirked all the way to the card shop. When they got the card shop, it was empty of customers except for them. The only person in the shop right now currently was Sadie. Each ticket costs 1,000 DP, Sadie explained, so that'll be 4,000 in total. Eesh, pretty expensive just to get in a small room and look at some posters of Yugi Moto and his deck in a display case. £100 per ticket, that amounted to 400 in total. He could buy multiple season tickets to Celtic Games for that total amount. That was blasphemy. Granted, football was a lot less popular here and so the tickets were even cheaper here, but still. Alright, ring them up. Yarden shrugged in the end and replied, bringing out his PDA. Alrighty. Sadie nodded and did just that. You don't need to pay for us, you know, we have our own funds. Alexis pointed out. Meh, let me spoil you a bit. He turned around and leaned back against the counter and grinned at her. Besides, I'm practically rolling in DP here, got over 200,000 at the moment. And he'd get a lot more soon. He just had to bide his time and do some betting when the time came. T200,000? Jasmine sputtered, going wide-eyed, and she wasn't alone. Mindy, usually one that didn't get shocked easily, had her eyes fly wide open as well, and even busty blonde girlfriend's mouth fell a bit low. Yup, Yarden basked in the shock with a grin. You have no idea how much DP I make a day, especially after I started dating you, Alexis. Every time I get to the dorm a bunch of the clowns challenge me. I mop them up and rake in easily 10,000 a day. They seem to think I'll slip up at some point if they keep challenging me. As if he ever would. Honestly, it was quite boring, and his cyber dark dragons practically oozed dissatisfaction into his mind. After the first few idiots he clowned on with them, they actually lacked the desire to fight. They wanted to fight the strong. Which was why Yugi's deck might be a good test for them. If Dimitri actually stole it again, at least. He eyed Jasmine specifically after explaining to them and raised his eyebrow challengingly at her. After all, funds were one of the excuses she gave. She grimaced, understanding his meaning, and looked away. Well, that's impressive. I only have like 4,000 left. Mindy scratched the back of her head and giggled lightly. I've got 7,000, I've been using most of mine on cards. Alexis shrugged after regaining her bearings. Just how many wins do you have so far? His girlfriend asked. Check for yourself. Yarden shrugged, flicking through his PDA to his profile and holding it up for them to see. Name, Yarden Odhar. Age, 15. Birthday, 01/11/XX. Dormitory, Obelisk Blue. Status, first year. DP, 222,750. Wins, 400. Draws, 0. Losses, 0. He'd been at 394 wins this morning, so mopped up a few of the clowns at his dorm when they were growling at him to get it to an even 400. They were just that easy to goad. One mention of how he couldn't wait to invite Alexis back to his room later after class, and bam, they were on their feet demanding a duel. F400? He got to bear witness to the rare event of his cool-headed girlfriend sputtered in shock. 0 losses and draws as well, Jasmine grimaced. I knew it was gonna be absurd, but damn, no wonder you're so full of yourself. That's crazy, not even Zayn has a record that clean. Well, obviously, since I beat him. Yarden pointed out smugly, basking in their wide-eyed looks. Well, I mean, yeah, totally, but Zayn has more wins than you, but he's also got a few draws and a couple losses, Mindy pointed out. Lexi's older bro was his big rival, total top-tier duelist and a total hottie at the same time. Huh, they knew about Atticus. Actually, they were Alexis' more or less childhood friends, so of course they would. Zayn has around 700 wins, but he's been here for 3 years. Alexis shook off her shock and frowned. It's only been 2 months and you've had 400 duels? How do you even have the time for that? I mean, I don't do them all separately, I don't have the time to beat them all individually, I've just been taking on a bunch of them at once, remember? I beat like 40 right after that crap with Titan. Yarden pointed out. They could be annoying as hell, but they made for good tests for trying out combos, and he got DP out of it every single time, which was money in the bank, so he wasn't complaining. Much. Oh right, but still, that's an insane amount. Alexis sighed. Not gonna lie, seeing that absurdly massive and clean win rate kinda pisses me off. Jasmine crossed her arms and pointed out, drawing a laugh from Mindy. Deal with it, baby cakes. Yarden laughed himself, spreading his arms wide and invitingly. "You can take a crack at me anytime you want. In fact, I'll take on all three of you at once if you want." "Pass," Jasmine denied instantly. "We're not good enough to make a difference. In fact, we'd just drag Lexi down if she dueled you." Ouch, Mindy winced, though she's not wrong, plus you'd totally tack some kind of losing condition that we'd have to go through with once you beat us. "Probably a lap dance, he seems fond of them." Alexis smirked knowingly. Two heads snapped to Alexis. "A lap dance? Lexi, you've gave him a lap dance already?" Jamsign sputtered. "Alexis, you're really bold." Mindy laughed, cheeks staining red. "No, but he's brought it up a few times when we were making out," she shrugged, "and that it was his birthday soon." Well, she wasn't wrong, but she really needed to, not bring stuff like that up in public. Why was her common sense so on point for everything else besides dueling and their dating life? Jasmine gave him a deadpan look when she turned away from his blonde girlfriend, but before she could say anything, Sadie's voice interrupted them. "You guys really should watch what you discuss in public places," she said dryly, making Yarden turn to see the older woman giving him a dry look as she set 4 tickets down on the counter. "So lap dance, huh? Interesting preference," she mused lightly. There was a coy little smirk on the woman's face. She'd caught him checking her out a few times, and he'd maybe a few times directed her to bend down low to get to a card for him to check out on purpose. "I like what I like," he shrugged, picking up the tickets. "Oh, I know, trust me." Sadie snorted in amusement, raising her eyebrows knowingly. So yeah, he'd flirted with her a little bit since he was always at this shop. And he was a pretty big spender. He could feel a set of eyes burning into his back. That was definitely Jasmine. "So, anyway," Yarden coughed, "I'm looking for a specific card. Want to see if you have it in stock." He changed the subject. "Well, give me the name and I'll take a look if we have it in stock." Sadie's coy smirk grew and leaned forward a bit. "Better hope it's not on a low shelf this time, eh?" 2 more gazes burned into his back. Somehow, this was enough to annoy even Alexis. Damn it. "Right, while the name of the card is Falling Current," Yarden quickly pushed on, "it lets you target one monster face up in your control and change it to either a level 1, 2, or 3 monster." It was a long shot since it was a pretty new card where he was from, but he'd gotten his Diamond Head Dragon not long ago and was looking through his heavy hitters and remembered the card and how well it would go with some of his base fusion monsters like Kaiser Dragon. Like with it, he could make Kaiser Dragon a level 1 and equip it with fusion weapon, boosting its attack to 3900. And then to take it even further, he could add Opti-Camouflage Armor, letting it attack directly, or even Triangle Power that would boost its attack by another 2000. Sadie tapped her chin in thought for a moment. "We do have a few of them, came out last year if I remember right. Not really a popular card, so they're only worth like 100 DP each. Gimme a sec to go dig a few out." She gave him a cheery wink and turned around, hips swinging and rear end stretching out her thigh-length dark blue skirt like a shelf noticeably. She was doing that intentionally. Still, nice. "Hey lap dance boy," a petite hand landed on his shoulder. "Something you wanna come clean about?" He felt large, soft breasts press against his back and Jasmine's dry voice directly in his ear. "I think I'd be interested in hearing this as well." Alexis's voice added dryly. "Really Yarden, the card shop counter girl as well." He could practically feel Mindy shaking her head in disappointment. In my defense, Yarden turned around, finding himself nose to nose with Jasmine. "I flirted with her before I was dating you, Alexis." "Who haven't you flirted with on this island?" He got a point-blank look at Jasmine, rolling her eyes. "Honestly, you'd probably hit on a tree if it was shaped like a woman's crotch," she huffed, standing back. "Hey, now that was just hurtful." Duelist profile, Yarden Odhar. Name, Yarden Odhar. Age, 15. Country of birth, Scotland. Significant other, Alexis Rhodes. Occupation. Student of Duel Academy. Student dormitory, Obelisk Blue. Current funds, 222,750 DP. Bank account, £383,388. Bonded spirits, Ranryu, Decoy Dragon, Rare Metal Dragon, 100 Dragon, Spirit of the Breeze, Fairy Dragon, Chaos Necromancer, Soul Tiger, Larvae Moth, Griggle, Outstanding Dog Marin, Catnipped Kitty, Unhappy Maiden, Skull Servant, Archfiend Marmot of Nefariousness, Goblin Calligrapher, Serpent Marauder, Blade Rabbit, Steel Scorpion, Dream Sprite, Relinquished. Abilities, massively enhanced physical parameters. Enhanced senses. Increased growth rate, draconic aura. Enhanced endurance. Enhanced recovery rate. Enhanced dexterity. Enhanced bone durability. Enhanced healing factor. Enhanced reflexes. Enhanced agility. Enhanced flexibility. Magic resistance. Energy absorption. Dex, Dragon Spirit, Magician Girl, Skull Archfiend, Mishmash. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Also check out other content on the channel. Also again, this series What If Transmigrated to Yu-Gi-Oh! GX is finished for now due to catching up with the current number of chapters. So I would like everyone's input for the next project on this channel. I am currently debating between 3 fanfics. 1. What If Transmigrated as Harry Potter? 2. What If Ninja in Jujutsu Kaisen? 3. What If Sign-In System in High School DxD? Please comment below on what fanfic you would like to see next on this channel. I will also be creating a poll for the same.